Yeah, and in the past when I've posted interviews and stuff, I've done the same thing where usually get the stream going, we just kind of continue to figure things out and BS a bit up front, and then at some point we go official, and then we wind up clipping the front end and usually the BS at the end as well off. I don't. Oh, cool. People are already coming in. I don't know how you guys usually do it. I forget level of cursing. Just so you know, on our streams, it's fine if you feel the need. If you are presenting in a more civilized and professional manner, then it's completely understandable if you don't curse as well. You don't need to feel obligated to do it. I might, so I don't know if you're worried about people on from your community seeing. I tend to keep it PG-13 as much as possible. But lately, the community has got me to start using the F word more frequently, which is nice because I typically use that in my day-to-day life very frequently, but I realized that when I first started streaming, I had adopted a fake persona, one that didn't curse all the time. And so it's been slow getting back to reality. So just so you know.
If you're going to choose one word to use, that's the correct one. So
If I'm starting to curse in French, that's when that's a very bad sign. I mean, I'm very annoyed.
Well, hopefully that doesn't happen tonight, but if it does,
probably not.
Okay.
It's in general in jumping puzzle or game like that where I fail constantly.
people generally been good. I don't know what you've run into with your streams or with the community in different chats or whatever, but starting with the EverQuest like interviews that kind of kicked everything off for the Monsters and Memories project. It really started as a offshoot of the original discussions with EQ folks.
Nice.
And people there were cool. Even when we had, I had Jen come on, who was, I think she was not the tech director. I thought she was actually producer at the time, or both. And they just had some problems with their TLP. And, I was expecting people to be a bit spicier in chat. And for the most part, people were good. I think it's been rare that we've banned people from our chat that aren't bots. I think maybe 4 in like the last 3 years. Discord's kind of been the same way. So people, generally speaking, have been good. Drindon, hello. Talit, hello. Nicodemus, John, Sparrow. As we get further into this, I'm not going to say hi to you people because you're late and you should have come in earlier, and then I would have acknowledged you. Unless it's Dark Inside, when he finally comes in, I'll acknowledge him. That way he doesn't have to like all caps the whole time. And all right. Oh, you know what? I probably should have like some music in the background. That would have been nice. Some atmospheric music, because then when we're not talking, it's a nice filler. But I think with these guys, maybe we'll always be talking. That would be good. Good.
Yes, of course. Tell us when we can start.
You know what?
Yeah.
This will be a quick one in terms of like getting started. Usually I bullshit around for a bit longer, but I think, based on the fact that we've got some people in already, I even glanced. I never look at the viewer count. I just have the dash up there just because I hate seeing it. Ever since the first streams I started doing, I was like, I'm not going to look at viewer count, because when I was streaming to like 5 people and it'd be like 3, and I'm like, oh shit, what did I just say? And it'd be like 7. I'm like, must have done something awesome. Then be back down to 4. I'm like, oh god, right? So it's nerve wracking. So
yeah.
Cool. You know what? And I can clip the thing to be posted the way I usually do it, just from like the part where you guys introduce yourselves and the project. I've got it set up. I told you it's very hacky. I'll have to get some tips after after this is all over with, I have to get some tips on making my stream more professional. So I'll follow up separately. But for now, it's like if people need to see the names, I guess I could mouse over Discord and they pop up a little bit. But then poor Bobby down there's got the buttons like invading a space at the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. But he might like that. I don't know. It's like
be hiding behind all the UI.
he's got a command console down there, so I can do that. And then yeah. So I tell you what. Why don't you guys kick it off however you want to kick it off, and I will. I'll just kind of figure out from there, and we'll go forward.
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, thanks for having us on your stream. And I was really looking forward to this. Sparrow, who is in chat, actually connected us, and that was awesome. Thank you, Sparrow. So we've been looking forward to this for quite some time, since before the new year, actually. And just Shawn and I had to kind of work out with all our different time schedules. I think we have at least 4 different time schedules on this as far as like time zones. But yeah, it took a little while to work it out, and then we had the holidays and everything. So thanks for being patient. And yeah, I'm Drinden, John Gus, the executive producer on Embers Adrift, and we're a classically inspired MMORPG, very similar spirit as Monsters and Memories, and we're looking forward to, I don't know, we're just looking forward to talking with you today and answering questions. And
likewise.
And this is really awesome because it's part of our desire to be collaborative with other indie MMORPG dev teams and other projects that are like us, creating their passion and trying to revive a genre that has drifted away from what it was originally. And so it's really, really exciting to be able to discuss about all of that.
Right on.
And yes, so I'm the community manager for Embers Adrift, and I'm the one in the team that never played a request.
That happens. There's always at least one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adric, you want to go next?
Yeah, I can go next. Adric lives, John Zink. I do mostly content for in-game content for Embers Adrift. A lot of the class, skill, mob design. I joined the team, I think 2.5, 3 years ago, about. And it's been great. I have the same like vision and spirit of following like the classically inspired MMOs, and I love the genre, and I loved all these projects coming up. So really excited to get the chance to chat with you and answer some questions.
What he's not saying is that he was playing the game before to join the team, so it has been a lot longer.
Yeah, I was a backer for like 3 years prior to that too. So been around.
Yeah.
We lost our best QA tester by having him join the team, so his opinion was no longer, objective at that point.
Right. That happens as well.
Yeah.
All of a sudden everything works on my machine.
Of course. Missing data. Just blame Unity, right? That's the mantra around here. It's Unity's fault. I'm Robert Thompson. I'm the tech director at Stormhaven Studios, responsible for all the networking and basically doing everything I can to make Adric's job easier and faster to perform. So, and then obviously fixing bugs and lots of stuck spots, endless amounts of stuck spots. So thank you for getting stuck. I don't know why you guys are where you are, but thank you.
Right on. Yeah, and so just 2-3 bits of sort of housekeeping heads up. One, I am based in Germany, so that means that it is feasible that my internet could go out at some random point. It hasn't happened a ton, but it has happened. And so that's point one. Point two, the one thing I didn't check with regards to Discord was which time zone or which server it was using. So we may find that there's a little bit of lag or whatever. And in the past, I've found that I think I can pop in and switch it to like West Coast or whatever, and it might make things better, but we'll kind of keep an eye on that. Let me know if you're running into any issues. And then the other thing is just audio. If anybody hears anything weird, I right as you guys started talking, I was like, oh, let me check the levels, and I turned it up a bit so that hopefully that's fine. And I think we'll get that feedback from chat as we go. And the way I've done it in the past, just so that I don't have to do any like moderation where I try to keep track of questions and things, is if you see an interesting question in chat as we go, feel free to just grab it. And so I'm not Oprah. I don't have a plan. It's not going to interrupt my flow.
I was promised a car.
Yeah, well, promises. Yeah, so let's see. I'm really curious, and so I guess if there are folks that are in here that are in here for the first time, because it is very likely that we'll have some crossover today. For people that don't know who I am, I'm Shawn. I'm one of the folks working on another indie MMO called Monsters and Memories. My background is been working. I started as customer service on EverQuest back in early 2000. That's how I got my foot in the door making MMOs, and I've worked on MMOs ever since as a designer for the first half, and then producer, production, product guy in the second half. And I just happened to be doing some. Actually, I watched a guy. I was curious about Twitch and was like, "Do they play EverQuest on Twitch? That'd be interesting." And sure enough, they were. And then some guy was like, "Hey, there's going to be a TLP server. If you want to check it out," and hopped on there, which led to me streaming that. People going, "Hey, you really don't know shit about EverQuest, so could you get some people on that do know about EverQuest so we could ask them questions?" Did that for a bit and had some people come on, which led to more streaming, more discussion of why EQ was cool and how classic MMOs felt different than modern MMOs. And then we joked about making one, and then we started making one. And that was 3 years ago. So, along those lines, can you take me back to the history of, like, I'm very curious about the thing that I guess you've dealt with this question before, but I'm curious about Embers' origin and sort of that path to now.
Yeah, I mean, originally it was a couple of us playing P99 actually, and just being like, it would be really interesting to make a modern MMO with the same spirit. And that was back in, I think that was like February or March. I think it was February of 2014. And we were hearing about Unity and just kind of like how there were these tools out there that could potentially, put something together. And obviously we had no idea the depth of the waters at the time. As Bobby likes to say, we're idiots. We decided to build an MMO as our first game.
There's nothing wrong with that.
So, yeah, it was kind of a similar thing. We were just playing EverQuest. The graphics, are very, very nostalgic and endearing, but something with a little bit more modern touch is kind of what we were hoping for. And also, we loved everything about EverQuest, and we want those, like Eloa said before, a genre that's kind of drifted away from its origins. We wanted to bring that back. That's kind of the main objective. That and having a monetization model that doesn't suck or doesn't screw people over, or kind of, I don't know, like just want it to be simple, like games should be simple and fun, and monetization should be about letting people to get into the game and not necessarily directing them to a cash shop or creating problems so that you can sell the solution to those problems. For us, that was like, yeah, we just want something simple. And so that's been our kind of our goal is, classic MMO inspired and simple monetization. It's not too,
I
it's
think
fair. Yeah.
I think there's a great desire in all the member of the team to be also very ethical and to have a kind of a humanism to our game, because a lot of the game in the industry has evolved into uh, cash machine in some way, and it's normal that a video game need to make some money, and it's not a criticism. I really love modern MMORPG too. I really enjoy to play them, so it's not a criticism, but we really wanted to offer a nice and fair project, offer a nice and honest and humble attitude to our player, to offer something transparent and honest to them. So there is no kind of manipulation into getting them buy more stuff. They just buy the project and they subscribe or choose to not subscribe, and that's about it. We try to also offer a game that is not using methods that are a little bit borderline to keep player engaged, but to engage them with a real experience and a real adventure, and not dopamine shot and addictive things to keep people playing the game. So we just want to be honest, ethical, with a lot of integrity, and offer something of quality as much as we can.
And so so you had that in mind from the onset. And so did you knew you wanted to make an MMO. Did you have an idea of from the beginning, like a time frame that you felt that you're going to shoot for? Was it more open-ended, like, hey, we're going to work on this thing, and as it comes about, it's going to come about? Did you have scale in mind?
My goal as producer was to keep feature creep as reined in as possible, because we've seen so many games crash and burn due to that. So I guess for us, it was really important to keep it realistic. I guess for us, we a new studio, first game. A lot of people on the team do have industry experience, but not like a bunch of awesome devs from EQ back in the day, and a career since then as well. But yeah, we the big goal was to keep feature creep in check, and I guess we didn't really have a time frame in mind. We kept thinking of dates internally that we thought would be reasonable, and then we would never hit those as well. So yeah, it was kind of a fly by the seat of your pants as far as the timing goes. So
yeah, I mean,
are
the
you guys
origins of the origins of the project were very much working in our spare time, kind of just doing it as we go, and we didn't have any strict timetable. Once we were able to start getting some investments, so we could start bringing more people on board and expanding the, this is actually happening, bring people on full time and actually start working on the project. Then we started to have to, concern ourselves with budgets and timelines and things like that. So that's really when the scope creep rating started happening, because up until that point, it's always hopes and dreams of, this would be really cool to do, but we still have to build that foundational technology, in essence, to make that happen, right? We need the game first. We need
Right.
the framework in place before we can tack on all these additional features and interesting things that we'd like to get to. And a lot of those things are still on our to-do list. They're just, the to-do list is very long. So
Yeah, for sure. It always is, right? And especially once you've gone live, right? And that's the thing that I've seen with companies, even within like Sony or other companies, where I guess folks that haven't worked on a live game don't understand the degree to which their lives are going to be impacted the moment it goes live, on top of everything else that you've been, because you'll crunch to get the game out and be like, okay, great, I can breathe. No, you can't.
No.
that was back then. If you're going to do any breathing, you should have done it back then.
Right.
Now you've got a kid, right? Like it's, and it's not even one kid. It's like, I don't know what the term would be for, instead of like twins or triplets, like, hundreds and thousands of them,
It's
all at
certainly a
once.
lot.
Yeah.
Our development schedules changed drastically, and we long for the times of beta where it's like, well, we screwed that up. Let's just start over, and redo itemization, right? But like, you can't do that once these things are live and characters are persistent. You can't take the things that they've worked so hard for and just nerf them into oblivion because it's overpowered, right? Like,
Well,
you
you
have
can.
to adjust. Well, you can, yes. But,
They're not going to be happy with you. But
right. And if you
yes,
have
no, I know
a
what you're
smaller
saying.
population, it's much harder to get people to bite on that, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want people walking away with a negative feeling, so you have to make other adjustments, and it's definitely more challenging than we anticipated. So
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
remember.
but that's
Sorry,
normal.
that first week,
don't
or
talk
sorry,
about
the
boots,
first
don't
month
talk
or
about the
so
boots.
that we were doing like weekly patches, right?
Yeah,
Ooh.
we had to give up on that because
That
it's just
was-
not a good rhythm.
It's tough. The last company I was at actually had a history of doing weekly patches for, I think, basically their inception, and I forget when I left there, like year 9 or 10 of their product's life cycle, and it was when I was working on Star Stable Online, so the online horse adventure game for girls based out of Sweden, maintained a weekly update schedule uninterrupted for years and years and years and years, right? And I was just like, it was brutal. So going back to that though, like to your point of like not realizing it, I think it goes to show, you mentioned like, hey, we did a crazy thing, decided to make an MMO as our first game. I've seen big companies have teams that did that as well, right? It's their first game, or maybe they had people from different games or whatever. But at some point, you're an MMO. At some point, you're going to make your first MMO, right? If you're going to make an MMO, so what you're expressing is one of those things where, in the past, I've had people mention on stream or whatever, like, oh, this company versus an indie team, or why does an indie team think they can do it, or whatever. And what I'm finding in working with our team is, and it's not a bullshit thing that I just say to keep everybody pepped up, but I have worked with nothing but professional teams up until now. This is my first indie team. And the level of talent, the level of effort, the level of skill and adaptability on this team, our team is a solid team in my experience. And so the development that we're doing is real development. When the game goes live, it will be a real live game. And when you guys mentioned like, oh, we didn't realize it's going to be that tough. Yeah. And neither do the big teams, right? They're like, they don't realize that shit either. And sometimes surprisingly so. It's like, how did you not see that one coming? You're at a company that makes nothing but MMOs and you didn't realize this shit was about to happen to you. So, I mean, it's just, I think it's one of those signs where I look at, I look at the products that come out from indie teams these days, and I'm like, to me, it's okay. The products and the teams that I'm seeing are probably even better positioned to be great companies in the future than any time in the past, right? So, yeah, and just to throw it out there, I haven't played a ton. I started playing over the holidays because honestly, when you guys first came out, I tried to get in, and I ran into like a billing issue or something, and like I don't remember what it was, and then I was like, okay, I'll get back to it, and then so much M&M stuff going on, just didn't get back to him. And I was like, I gotta play, and so got in and played, and I was telling folks on the team and telling people on stream, I'm like, it's a fun game. and I'm having as much fun playing Embers as I've had playing other MMOs. And honestly, something about maybe the pacing, something about some of the social experiences I've already had in there. I'm sitting there and I'm a slow leveler because I'll have a podcast on. To me, it's relaxation. I come in to relax. And so it's been perfect for me because I just come in and I'm like, even if I'm not grouping up with anybody or whatever, I like to just sit in there and grind, watch my podcast in the morning, like relax, and if if you were to tell me this MMO is made by an indie team versus something like Rift or whatever, I'm like, all right, well then, hell yeah, because I'm having as much fun, if not more, playing your game than I have in those other games, right? So, just that's a long ramble about indie teams and stuff because I was just like, I think there's this weird belief sometimes, this vibe I get in the community sometimes where it's like, oh, but it's an indie team, and I think what I've seen from you guys is, well, I'd be curious to see what would have happened if you had a non-indie budget and non-indie resources, right? So,
that would be great.
Yeah, that would be nice.
With that in mind, I'm curious. Can you guys? So that time frame, and I think I mentioned beforehand when we are kind of like talking about getting stuff set up. When I was talking to John, I was like, "You guys can ask me anything because I'm sort of like, I'm old school white trash. Like I grew up, I grew up in an environment. You ask me anything, I'll tell you about anything you want to hear. I'll just run my mouth about it, right? Like there are no boundaries. There's no, like none of that shit. So I talk about everything. So, but as I ask questions with you guys, if I hit anything that you're like, we're going to rather skip that, just say pass or something. But going back again to the beginning of the project, so it started as a passion project, and you got to a point where you're able to like basically start to formalize things and move it into like having full-time people and stuff. What was that time period like? Can you say like how long from like the inception to that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of just started like BSing weekly for like, like pre-development for like a year. So that would have been like into 2015. And then we started bringing on some actual developers. I think Bobby came around early 2015, right?
Yeah, it was right when we formed the actual company, right? So,
Right, the LLC, sure.
yeah, and it's still maintained a passion project. I don't know when you started seriously getting into, getting investments and actually moving those things forward. I guess that would be the time
Yeah,
period.
I think that was like close to the end of 2018. I think about October 2018 was when we got our first investment.
It's about
We
3
had
years
one,
of just messing around.
yeah, basically.
Okay.
It was a passion project for at least 3 years. We went to Austin. We went to, I can't remember what the game,
It was the Intel Game Developers
game
Conference or
dev
something.
conference,
Yeah.
something like that. We won some, I don't know. Yeah, I think we won a top 10. We won some award. I can't remember what it is. We got a booth there. And that's kind of when it, like, some of the there's a producer from Daybreak who came and played our game and had fun and was like, yeah, keep doing what you're doing. We got some good feedback from like a professional. So we were like, oh, okay, well, maybe this could be more than just a passion project. So we kind of worked hard to polish up like I guess you could call it the beautiful corner, like a content slice.
Oh, it was terrible. Performance was terrible.
Yeah,
Everything was terrible looking back.
it was. But we put together a pitch deck and started talking to investors in late 2018, and yeah, that's kind of when it became real, is when we got good feedback from actual professionals, and then we got our first investment, and then we started bringing people on in a more serious capacity. And yeah, it was a really fun time, full of hopes and dreams. But yeah. So I guess
Rushed.
probably I'd say 4 years really from that, just BSing in EverQuest to actually having something that investors would invest in.
And was that that takes time, right? That takes a fair amount of effort, that whole process, and then maintaining that.
Yeah.
And have you felt so is it still, is that something that still takes a amount of time? Like, do you still have those relationships or obligations, and is that something that you got to like manage with your schedule as well?
Yeah, we're not doing like heavy like investment pitching right now, but we are still we obviously, like I sent out a quarterly. I missed the last one because we moved and had a baby and then a funeral. It was kind of a crazy time in life. So I missed one quarterly investment. What?
I said, such a slacker, John.
No, I know. No, but yeah, so we send out a quarterly investment letter. I still talk to the investors pretty frequently. Yeah, so actually I'm meeting tomorrow with one of our investors about a marketing strategy tomorrow for lunch. So yeah,
Awesome.
that'll be good. Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of an ongoing thing. We're not actively seeking investment right now. We probably should be, but we're just doing what we're doing.
I guess
So,
sort of
yeah.
an addendum on that too. Like I was still external at that point, but you guys did do some crowdfunding as well, not through Kickstarter. And I know like during that time, there was a lot of drama around Kickstarted MMOs.
Yeah.
Which
we've been
caused some pushback on the community. And like, I mean, there's still like news outlets to this day that talk about Embers Adrift being a Kickstarted MMO, which it never was.
Right.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I guess that's the question that is always, a touchy one is like, I think we did, what was it called? Not Kickstarter. There's another.
Indiegogo, I think it was.
Yeah, Indiegogo. We raised like $3,000 really, really early on in Indiegogo. And then that's really the only like technical crowdfunding we've done. When you talk to like people in the business dev side of things, like for us, we did sell access to our alpha and beta, but people got access weekly to that. So like from the business dev point of view, you're giving them a product, so it wasn't technically crowdfunding, I guess. There's like a fine line there. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but like, what would you say? Is that like, that's always been kind of a question to me, is was that crowdfunding or was that actually just sales of a product? So
Right. Now, while I am cleared to give medical and financial advice, I can't give legal advice. The way I look at it is, I could see how, because there's essentially there are the technicalities and then there's the perception side of things, right?
yeah, that's
and true. The perception side of things is the scary one, especially in a niche environment, or I would guess like more of an indie environment, or when dealing with tighter communities and interwoven communities, as we can see here. And it's funny because like right as you were talking about getting the award at the show where you met the Daybreak folks, then Redbeard Flynn came in and chat. Someone come in and I was like, oh, and you just got an award recently as well. And
you did too. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you. It's funny. One of our wonderful team members first was like, "Hey, yeah, don't forget they got an award and we got an award." I was like, "Yeah, that's a good point, right?" Like, and so I was writing down my notes. So yeah, but it's interesting to see these communities because I like checking out the different content creators and seeing, right? They're playing different games and it's cool. It's not like, oh, you can't play this game because, and so I'll watch folks and I see how this sort of like interwoven community is there. And it gets back to the perception part, which is, was it crowdfunding or was it a form of early access? Was it a fair exchange, right? Like I would say, if you ask me, it's a fair exchange. It's like, hey, we're going to let you come in and you're going to get some amount of entertainment or access or whatever for a set period of time. And what we're asking for that period of time is this. And, depending on what that cost is, and ultimately I believe in if you put a price out there and somebody's willing to pay it, well, then it's a fair price to someone. Now, how the overall community feels about that is a totally different thing. And the management that over time, because I say this on stream when people are like, hey, what can we do to support you? It's like, well, keep being cool. Like the fact that you're not being an asshole in chat is already good. And then tell some other people, and then if they come in and they're cool too, well, I mean, that's what we can do to support, or that's what you can do to support us. And people are like, oh, but what can we give you money or can we do this? And it's like, well, if you really want to get like technical and you want to like get into like the gross side of making games, in theory, we can talk about like, what is the return on ad spend there, right? Like, how much cost per acquisition did we, right? So you're giving us money by bringing us other customers. And if you want to look at, right, and we want to start getting into sort of the gross business side of things, I don't know how we're going to track these metrics, but in theory we could. And so, it's weird because something like that feels normal, but then saying, hey, taking the same $5 or whatever the cost would have been for the acquisition of the user that they brought you. And I love the term user as well, right? Because it's not player, it's not community member, it's not even fan, it's user, right? So there's that side of it. So my opinion and sort of the thing we've talked about on the team is, what's one of the safest approaches? And the safest approach is to avoid money. And like we've got a merch shop. Like it's on our website. We've used it to buy merch for ourselves. We would love to have people buy merch. So amped to get merch out there. I think the whole team feels that way and the community feels that way. But the second we sold you a t-shirt, now do you think that's related, right? Did we just take money for the game or did we take money for the t-shirt?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys aren't taking money, it's a lot harder for people to sour on, not being able to deliver things that they expect, right? And you don't necessarily know what those expectations are. I mean, we've seen many of projects, this goes back to your earlier point of like, yes, it's a fair price because someone was willing to pay it, but are you able to live up to the expectations that, either you set or the players,
Right.
thought were set when they made that purchase?
That perception part is really scary.
Yeah, it's terrifying, and from the onset we've always had a pretty low bar in regards to buying into our product. We thought it was a pretty fair price all through pre-alpha, alpha, and beta. I think the only time we had higher tiers was back before all of that time, but we were always just like, we want to be as fair as possible to players and just, hey, you're basically buying the game and we're giving you access at the normal rate rather than having these extended set of tiers that we may or may not be able to meet those expectations.
Was it strictly the access when you had that stuff back then, or was it like, because I've seen the various sort of packages and things on different games. I'm just curious, was it just access or?
We had some extra stuff, I think, a couple of tiers, but
Yeah, it's
nothing
certainly changed
insane.
over the years.
That was before we started to work like our team's working currently now. So
Yeah.
there had been a shift in how we were working among the team after the pandemic, which really changed everything. I think we have started to work really differently and really as a team. Someone was asking a question about the story of Embers Adrift. That's also when we created the story of Embers Adrift all together as the team. So it has really been a common project where everyone were putting their ID and their desire, their fantasy, and the stuff they like. And we created this lore together. And after, of course, it came in the hands of the writer. But at first, we put all together our idea, and it has been, for me, it has been one of the best moments of the creation of the games when we sat together as a team and we really started to bond together over this project and really make it our own. And that has been a really exhilarating moment.
How did you do that mainly? Was it a lot of sort of group voice chats? Did you do it async? And we use Slack, and honestly, it's been a godsend because we're in so many different time zones. How
Yep,
did you do
same
it?
here.
Yeah,
Yeah, a lot of.
we
Go ahead, Jeff.
we try to keep like meetings to a minimum, not only just because it's hard to schedule with the time zone, but because we want to be working. So a lot of times there'll be one-on-ones. If someone has a question, they'll one-on-one up either via Slack or Discord or I mean, there was a time before Discord when we weren't really using Discord a whole lot. But I think we always had Slack.
Okay.
Think,
Yeah, I
right,
mean,
Bobby?
Yeah, we always had Slack. We've had Slack for quite some time, but I mean, the origin of Embers Adrift in itself was, we were working on a product before Embers Adrift, and it was kind of actually organic, right? Because we had this wound system that was kind of loosely inspired by Star Wars Galaxy's wound system in a sense, and you could heal these by the campfire, and they really turned into these really interesting social hubs in this player dynamic we witnessed in people testing our game. And we were like, how can we make these more of a focal point of our game, right? And we just started, we're just in a Slack chat, or I think it was like a Google Hangout or something, and we just started spitballing ideas and how instead of just being this campfire that heals wounds, what if it was something else, and then we kind of just riffed off that idea to kind of organically grow the lore of our of Embers Adrift. And it's also how the name came about and all those things. So it was a really fun and organic process, like Wendy was describing, that just kind of bloomed out of this game thing that was actually an unintended consequence of like the wound system and how you heal wounds, right? So thanks to Raf Koster for working on that system back in the day and providing some inspiration there. So
And what we did was to actually build the lore around the gameplay mechanics that we made rather than building gameplay mechanic to justify a lore that were pre-existing. So it was really molding the lore around all of those gameplay mechanics to justify them and carry them with some exciting story. And we also wanted to do something original and different that stand out from everything you have seen, and which is why I like to say that we are not low fantasy but medieval science fiction style, because there's a lot of grounded realism and mysteries, and it's intended that the players start up a little bit, oh, this is a mundane world, I recognize everything is familiar, and then there's things out of place that are mysterious, and slowly they creep in. They are a little bit creepy too, and they are aimed to be mysterious and to really capture the attention of the players to make him want to discover more.
Yeah, it's been interesting. So, like I said, I've been playing, and I haven't been watching no videos, reading no, wiki or anything. Just going in and running into some stuff where I'm like, okay, I know this is something. I'd be curious to learn what's going on here. And now that said, that's a partial lie, because I have watched some other people play, but while watching them play, it hasn't been like a big reveal. It's just been like, oh, okay, cool, this is the next, the zone that just came out and stuff like that. So for me, that's been fun, and that's one of those things that I've kind of mentioned in the community and stuff. It's like, hey, if you haven't played it, go in and try it. But I would also recommend that people, it's interesting because this will be maybe a side tangent or future topic when we can get back to sort of the thread that we've been on. But it's like, it's interesting to see the folks that are, that will, min max and look for every bit of information and just plow ahead as hard as they can, and then be like, oh shit, like, well, there's not enough here. Or it's just like, well, okay, I don't know what to tell you, dude. It's just, and again,
You
it's
sailed past 80% of the stuff you were supposed to look at.
right. You've the goal wasn't for you to just sort of blast past everything. And if you've done that, that's fine. We're not judging you for it. But when you didn't come in and complain about it, then we are judging you, definitely judging you, like mocking you with memes and shit. So
The most vicious kind of mocking.
yeah. But
The meme mock.
when was that period? Because like, Wendy, you may have said earlier, and I might have missed it, but so when did you come on board, and then when was that sort of more communal gelling process, like time frame wise?
I did come on board in 2016, so quite early still. But yeah, it was really after the pandemic we changed our way of working together and build up our
I think it was
team.
like early 2020, wasn't it? Like March 2020 or something like that.
Yeah, don't remember. It was during the crisis overworld, and I remember we were so absorbed with our meeting and everything that everything else is faded away a little bit. But
And
I guess I'm confused as to what the exact question is now. We've gone in so many different directions.
oh yeah,
I think
that's
he's talking about the actual organic process of developing Embers Adrift and the lore and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
yeah. Because you just mentioned there was this period where you really started coming together and talking about the story, and then and it feels like that's where the team. I got this sense that was not to imply it wasn't the case beforehand, but the way I read that comment was sort of that's when the team really started all kind of contributing in a way that was maybe different than whatever's going on before. And I was curious the time frame, because the evolution, right, like from 2015 up to there to working through release, when that was.
I think it was later than that, early in 2020. I think it was
Could
like,
have been 2021. I don't know.
yeah, it's hard to remember these dates.
I think they're saying that when I joined, just things really kicked into gear. And
oh
Yeah.
yeah, it's when Adric joined. It's true. I remember now.
All right, guys, we got to be professional now. We've got Adric on board.
Makes
No,
sense.
yeah, I don't know, but it was really a fun time because it was just like, as one of our devs likes to say, there's no bad idea in a brainstorm, and it was a lot of like, we weren't just meeting anymore to like have our weekly stand-up meeting or anything like that. It was like we're meeting to like talk about cool lore stuff, that was super fun, and I think it kind of turned the whole team kind of into like a family, like we kind of started really bonding over creating the world together, and that was wonderful.
I think at that point our tech stack was a lot more solid, right? So we were able to like look at the actual foundation, the bones of the game, and be like, there's something here. Now we can actually build off this and actually make it into something interesting rather than more of a prototype, right? So
yeah,
that's when we got to the new zone and all the cool stuff that now you guys can play in. That started up, and so that was really cool. The weekly alpha meeting were also starting to be more exciting, and we were very lucky and blessed to have a very loyal player base that follow us through all the ups and downs and everything that we went through.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, and that is another interesting area with indie games, and especially indie MMOs. And this has been a big curiosity for me coming into this space. And I tell folks, I feel like while I don't have indie MMO experience, I do feel like I kind of got prepared and set on this path at the last two companies I was at, because both games are, in the grand sense of things, they're very niche. And one of them was maybe a bigger deal in certain circles. The one I worked on when I first moved to Germany was like a Flash browser-based game that's PvP, was pay to win for the longest period, like overtly so, bragging in, magazines of like, you can spend $1,000 or €1,000 on a drone kind of thing, right? And like, and it had a weird history. And I came in, I was the 13th producer after 8 years or 9 years on it, right? Like, and there was so much wrong with this game, but it made good money every month in terms of, when we look at it, it's not, it's not a wow, but it definitely could pay some bills. And so I was like, all right, this is odd. And then when I was recruited to go over and work in Sweden, again, when they first told me about the game, I'd never heard of it. And it was like, yeah, it's a game about an island of horses, and it's just girls, and they run around, they have horse races and stuff. And I was like, have you seen me? Why are you recruiting me? Like, do you think I'm going to fit in there at all? Kind of thing. And then when I met the team and saw what they were doing, like, I really fell in love with, like, this is a super cool company. And then when I saw like their metrics, I was like, this is a really, really decent business. And so I realized, all right, if you hit the right niche, there is opportunity there to form a business, but it's not going to be like a Blizzard release. The expectation can't be that it's going to be like, oh shit, now we've all got money hats, great. It's very different. And one of the things that I always thought was interesting in thinking about those, and then thinking about kind of what we're doing, is looking back at like the origins of EVE Online in the spreadsheet in space, and how it was kind of like, who's going to play this or whatever. And this sort of steady growth. And so getting this back to an actual like question, and it's going to be a tough one to formulate, or tougher than usual. It's already hard as hell for me to formulate coherent questions, but like turning this into one is going to be, so there seem to be certain sort of critical points that can impact a company. Typically in medium to big size companies, it's pretty obvious, right? Because you've got a P&L that's like, your operating expenses are what they are. And once you go live, you've probably got a payback window that's of a certain scale, and you've got a marketing budget that went into getting live, and there's certain maintenance or whatever. And all those things they're scary. And they're real scary, right? Because then there's expectations, and then it's kind of like there's a cliff, there's a runway, there's, right? Like, there are all the terms. The curiosity I have with indie games, and this is one of those ones where, again, it's going to be hard to formulate an appropriate question, right? Because there's certain shit that is, I will tell you everything you want to know about us, but I also know that we're unique in the fact that the team has agreed to deal with the fact that I'm a effing blabbermouth, and we'll share our business with anybody, but that's also part of what we do. On the flip side, there's no expectation of that with anybody else we deal with. But I look at it as, all right, when we talk about the community and we talk about the ups and downs, I've seen at least one other project that's kind of been an inspiration in the MMO, and they've kind of had their thing as well. And my thing is, as long as there's the ability to keep grinding, if there's something there, as long as there's the belief is, as long as there's the ability to keep grinding and adjusting, that no matter how a game launches, they can, I mean, shit, look at, why do I always, as soon as I go to use an example, I forget the damn name of the game, and then I have to ask chat, and you guys will know it right away. But they just announced MMO, and it looks brilliant. Shawn and company, No Man's Sky.
Oh, Hello Games.
Yeah, Hello Games, right? And again, and so you guys, I want to. I just wish there's a more polite way to ask it. But essentially, do you guys feel like you're in a position to just keep grinding and keep making the game better? And like if you're like, okay, people aren't liking this, or they need more of that, or whatever, you're able to do it. That was a lot of fucking build up to that little ass question.
The rudest question I've ever heard.
And it was like, and then I tried to softball it at the end. I'm like, how do I just make this like?
Yeah.
I mean, you just described our last year. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say that all of that condensed down is like something that I always keep telling myself, which is just like, MMOs aren't made, they're forged. Like just completely just keep hammering at it, keep getting content out there, and like the iterations with the community and stuff, and just like keeping that mentality of like, not just making a game, we're like forging it with the community.
Yeah, I mean, we're a super iterative team, and we've always been that way, right? So, back through pre-alpha, alpha, and beta, we were always like weekly patches, throwing stuff out there and just, seeing what sticks. And since we moved to monthly patches, we can breathe a little bit easier. But, it's harder to throw stuff at the wall and it doesn't stick, and then we get, negative reactions from the community, and we have to practice patience to wait and fix it, right? We have to make sure we take a step back, we think about it, and we make adjustments accordingly on QA, which we can, push changes out much quicker. But yeah, I mean, this past year is literally us just like lots of downs, lots of like sadness, and this isn't working, or this isn't working. Why isn't this working? But it's just like, players aren't enjoying this, or this is missing content wise, and it's like all we can do is put our heads down, put our nose to the grind,
Keep
wheel, and just
grinding.
keep going. Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah.
I think it requires a lot of humility also, and the capacity of not taking things personally, and that's sometimes not easy. Because sometimes someone is like, "Oh, you game suck," and you're like, but my baby, I put all my soul into it. How can you say something like this?" But it's just, we have to be able to ask ourselves, we question ourselves, and on every level. My task is probably very different from Bobby's task. But I also have to question myself. Am I serving the community well? Am I not too defensive? Am I not too open and sharing, too personal? How should I do things better, etc.? It's always putting yourself in question, and always, I think, need to be humble and not take things too personally.
Oh, it's tough. It's tough, right? It's like you have those days where you're like dusting off the 4 agreements or whatever. Yeah, is it 3 or 4?
Exactly.
Right? It's like, don't take it personally. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
It's hard not to take it personally.
It's tough.
It's tough, man. That's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about in this conversation. But to kind of directly answer your question, I think it was a bit of a more like financially. Can we just keep grinding? And the answer is yes.
Good.
Yeah, we don't have like a cliff that we see coming up. We're just gonna keep grinding and trying to make the product better and better and better. So
yeah. It's a tough one. Sorry, go ahead, and then I'll.
There's something to remember too is marketing budget.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, right? Like we're never gonna have a AAA marketing budget, and people expect us just to be able to like go and market. And like we spent a ton of money in traditional marketing practices. We didn't even come close to spending what we needed to, or what like what I think is like a ridiculous amount of money we spent in marketing. And you look at a AAA game, their marketing budget just blows it out of the water. It's like not even close.
No, I mean, yeah, I've seen marketing budgets that are more than development budgets frequently, right? Like, I've seen games where they've only spent a few million, not a few, but upwards of like $8 million with a $20 million marketing budget, right? Like in mobile. And or the monthly performance marketing, where essentially it's as long as we're making more money back than we're spending in marketing, then the game is we're just right. Like that is the name of the game. You're just so you're spending $2 million a month on getting it out there in the hopes that you're making $3 million a month back, right? Or whatever it is, depending on how narrow you can survive off of that. And man, I could go on just complete do marketing. I don't know what you guys have seen, but in my experience, my limited experience, a lot of marketing is just a scam, right? It comes down to, it's my belief at least, it comes down to, and this is often underrated at a lot of companies because companies have politics and marketing folks are oddly good at politics, and they prove the necessity of their marketing budgets. And it's not even just like the performance marketing budgets where in theory you could kind of look at that and see, essentially you can track the person from click all the way through the funnel into your game and blah, blah, blah. But it's like, oh, well, that was brand marketing, or what is all this organic marketing? Well, that's because we did some other bullshit over here. Or it's because the team's busting their ass and talking to the community and has a following and is making a decent product. So
the best marketing periods that we've had, we've spent money in, we've spent money consistently, but like the best marketing, I guess the best revenue periods we've had are when we've made a really big change in the game, or like it's been when we announced that the sub would go optional and we've had like our free play weekends, like those are when we do the best.
Yeah.
And is it coincidence that we happen to spend a little more in marketing at those times versus the team is busting their ass and doing a really good job, and we make a cool big announcement? I'm with you. I feel the same way as you do about things. So yeah.
Yeah, and and again, I can't speak to your situation, but I do think one of the reasons why we've been taking the approach that we have is with the understanding that depending on who is invested in our game in whatever way, they, and that's team, community, external investment, a publisher. If we're dealing with people beyond our team, then we could potentially be obligated to use certain tactics or have a strategy that isn't necessarily what we want to try. And that's not to say that what we want to try is the right thing, but personally, I'm coming at this project very much from the perspective of somebody that has been a line developer most of my career. It wasn't until the last company where I was, I was a C-level executive at the end and sort of functioned in that capacity throughout. But all the previous times, I was basically on the team going, I wish we could just do this, or man, what do I got to do with this other department, or when I was on EverQuest, we had a bullshit marketing budget. We didn't have a marketing budget, at the time. We'd get like 50 or 60 grand or something for an expansion, and unless I was getting bullshit information from the producer. But so we had to fake it. And one of the ways that I kind of believed that information I was being given about the lack of marketing budget was the fact that for a couple expansions, the only thing we did to market it was put up a website much earlier. And then I don't know if people remember, but there was a period where we started having like weekly story updates leading to the expansion, and it'd be like a painting with a blurb of text. And that was literally me going into game, taking a screenshot, giving it to a guy named Mark on the web team who would paint over it really quickly, and I'd write up some fantasy shit and be like, oh, the reason why the frogs look like the WB frog is because they've been given strong muscles due to their devotion to Nathaniel Marr. Ship it, right? Like, and it was just like some shit like that, and that was our marketing at the time, because the head of marketing was like, we're at E3, and he's like, people are coming through from Best Buy and all this other stuff. He said, oh yeah, that's that, that's that old shit. EverQuest, it sells itself, right?
Yeah.
But it kind of did sell itself, which then tells me that future games can sell themselves as well, right? So it's a thing. We'll eventually have a lot of conversations about it on the team, I'm sure. Damn, man, you were asking something when we were talking about, right after we were talking about how tough it is to not take things personally. And I don't think it was marketing, but
No, it was not related, which is why I kind of skipped over it. I think I was wondering how toxic things were back then when you were in customer service versus your perception of toxicity on the internet now.
well, I mean, a couple of years ago, one of the, and I don't know, maybe he's hated now as well, but back when there were the revelations about sort of Blizzard, and all of a sudden a lot of folks were no longer as popular in the community, there was still Jeff, Uncle Jeff, who I knew as Tiggle Bitties, before he became the sweater wearing lovable scamp that it was everybody's favorite uncle on the internet. And it was funny because I think it had to have been years and years before this. No, not Jeff Butler, Jeff Kaplan. And so it had to have been even before the project, because I remember at the time I was still using Facebook for more than just like occasionally talking to my parents via Messenger, because that's all they know. But like we had this Sony Online thread where it's like developers, or maybe this was on LinkedIn, which is basically just Facebook as well at this point. But anyway, there was somewhere where there's a bunch of developers that I know, and they were talking about toxicity in online games, and they're talking about toxicity in MMOs, and how much worse it is now. And they had like this wonderful like quote from like, I think Kaplan or somebody about like, yeah, and it's not good, kids. And I just started digging up shit that he was saying about us back then. And it's just, I can't even allude to the stuff that he was saying to you, because we'd get in trouble. Like I'd get canceled for just even getting you in the ballpark of the stuff that was being said about us at the time. So I'm like, maybe it's more toxic now, but like,
Very bad back then.
I mean, they had illustrations, and I see Secrets is in here, and I could have sworn that Secrets at some point found the illustration. Somebody has found the illustration for me, and it involves stick figures and the cursed encounter, and stick figures with giant penises and all sorts of stuff going on in this. And it was published on a website on the internet for all to see, talking about that. And Secret said, "Oh, I do have that one." See, and I'm like, but that was just the way it was, right? So in terms of like toxicity, I mentioned at the onset of this, it may kick off any time for us, but we've got like, I think Nick just said we've got like 6,700 people in the Discord. I think we banned 3 that weren't bots, right? Like we stream all the time.
I don't think we've had to ban maybe once or twice, but yeah, our community's pretty dang solid. We get a lot of people who've never played the game that will kind of roast us pretty hard, but it's like, I don't know. It's just people that like the thing is like people don't realize that they're talking to a team who's pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into something, and it's like their baby. And it's not even like that, doesn't even matter, right? The fact that it's our baby doesn't matter, but it's the fact that like we've worked so hard and we're trying to be so good to our players, and then to have someone just totally like not treat us like human beings and just do that, it's like, I don't know, maybe I just have a hard time imagining it, because I don't think I could ever do that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know, it's really tough.
Communications are a lot more direct now these days too. I mean, like even like Twitch and stuff, I mean, you could interact directly with like in real time with
Mhm.
the people in the community and everything that, maybe it used to be a lot more disconnected, and you write a forum post and you host a website. Of course, it's more permanent than Discord.
Yeah. Well, so it was interesting because the people that would, the people that would really, really say ridiculous stuff about us online during fanfares, um, we'd meet these folks in person and be like, "Hey, you're that guy, right?" Or they would even come up and be like, "Hey, yeah, I had this to say, or I'm in this guild or whatever." And me being me, especially after a couple beers or whatever I'm consuming at the time, like I can be pretty direct and okay with confrontation, if not actively seeking it out. And so but I would meet people and be like, oh yeah, and we know who the other one is, and everybody would wind up being cool, and I'd be like, well, but you just said this shit, right? Like, I didn't have we didn't have smartphones at the time, or it would have been hilarious. I'd be like, no, right here, this is you, right? And so at least there was a removal from the PC, so that, but and they're just like, yeah, man, you know how it is online, and it's true. Like I get it. But the challenge that it was very hard for me to not take it personally, and I'm gonna be honest with you. 20 years later, it's not much easier. I do think it's more. I do think it's more something that, as long as the team's cool, it doesn't bother me as much, right? Like if the team was like, oh shit, they were unhappy with the thing as well, then it'd be like, okay, that's something we have to address. But if like we all kind of agreed, or whatever, and then someone didn't like it, there's a lot of opinions out there. Not everybody's gonna like it. It's fine. If someone were messing with somebody on a team, I think I'd take it even more personally. But it's like, yeah, it's as you described, it's easy to, I think for a lot of people to not think about the fact that, hey, you just described a little bit earlier. It's like, being stressed about stuff not working and being unhappy about stuff and having downs, and like, I don't, on one hand, I think people don't realize, like, yeah, and sometimes you go in a room and you cry because you're like, oh fuck, this is not working, or hey, this is really tough, or this has been really stressful, or oh shit, like I don't know if we're going to be able to make this thing work the way we want it to, or make it happen, period, or whatever. They don't get it. But then there's also the fact that they don't need to, right? That's not their problem. What they want is
No,
they
it's
want a good game.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's a
that
challenge. Recognize that, like, a lot of the, at least in our case, a lot of the critiques we get, whether we take them personally or we think they're ridiculous or whatever it may be, most of them come from a place of good, right? Like they want the game to be better. They think they have an idea that could make the game better, and there's a lot of times where I try and explain the context of how we arrived at a certain system or why a certain system is the way it is or something like that, and it can frequently be viewed as being like defensive, right? Or like trying to tell them that they're wrong, and I've had to learn personally, right, that how you present that information is important, because it's like I'm just providing context so you understand how we got here, why we got here, and I'm not necessarily saying you're wrong, but in order for us to make these changes, it's a much longer technical task or design task that we need to address, and it's just not at the top of the priority list right now, because things work and then they work better, right? Everything can always work better, but if it's working right now and I've got 10 other things that aren't working at all, I got to fix those first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the strengths on our team is not panic changing things. Like we try to really take our time to think about it. So like when we get feedback, a lot of times like when we get feedback, we also like follow up and try to get very specific. And I think Bobby, like he mentioned, sometimes that comes down to like people thinking you're, like you said, being defensive. And it's really, we're just kind of like really trying to drill down to like exactly what is the issue. Because like you say the graphics are crappy, you say the graphics are from like 1999, but like what do you actually mean?
That's one where you're like, which game specifically in 1999 could you right? Like it's a that would be helpful because or it, and it's fair because the comment in chat, graphics from 1999 are the best though. Ollie agrees with you. He's dying to make a PS1 game. And so yeah, and some of it is, and I'm so I actually I learn from folks on the team in terms of responses. It's helped me a lot over the last couple of years because I am quick to be like, someone says some dumb shit, I'm just like, that's why, that is some dumb shit. That is not helpful at all, right? And it's like because I've spent so many years having to be like corporate and very, I wouldn't be allowed to do that. And I'm like, this is my opportunity to respond in real time. Okay, no, tell me your smart idea, like, and whereas Nick's in chat, Nick is consummate professional most times, at least when it comes to not being overly quick to blow somebody up in response. He will troll the shit out of people in Discord, but like for me, it's hard to not like react to that even after 20 years. So I guess the moral of this story is, I think it's just it doesn't get better. It maybe gets a little bit better. I don't know what to tell. And that's one of the things I wasn't prepared for coming into the industry, because I didn't. Oh, and so when people ask like, what was it like on those previous games, or even in the heyday, like, we're like, oh, cool, we're EQ back when that was like big deal. Dude, it was draining, right? It was weird because we're like, we're doing better than ever, and at the time, WoW wasn't out yet or whatever. We're like, we're killing it in the West. We're always like emotionally exhausted. It was something we talked about all the time, man. You just sit there and you're like, and it could be, oh wow, this expansion's selling like gangbusters, and we just broke our concurrent record, and somehow we got an expansion done and out the door in 4 months because we were asked to, and all that stuff, and we're getting decent royalty checks, and yet it's still, we'd find that one comment or that one like, FOH post or Legacy of Steel or whatever, we'd be like, oh shit. Okay. And it was just one of those things where it's like, all right, I guess I was gonna go home, but you know what, let me just fix this shit. They're right, and it's just like, and it got so bad. So I thought of this when you were mentioning it earlier, the beginning of this thread. I remember we went to see the movie Signs by M. Night Shyamalan, right? And we crunched so much that it was like when we could actually go out and watch a movie or something, it was great. So go and I watched this movie, and say what you want about the movie Signs. Ultimately, I enjoyed it. It had one of the best alien reveal, spoiler alert, alien reveal scenes in a movie, I thought, up until that date. And I was like, I really, I enjoyed this for what it was. And I'm leaving the theater, and there's two couples in front of us. And the guy is just like, that movie was bullshit, and that director sucks, and blah, blah. And so I yell at the guy who's in front of us. I go, hey. And he turns around. I'm like, what do you do for a living? And the guy just looked at me like he was not expecting that to be sort of the route his night was going to go, leaving Signs and, talking shit about it. And he's like, huh, what? I was like, do you do anything creative for a living? Do you make anything that people consume, like, creatively? And he's just baffled. Like, I'm like, then shut up. I don't want to hear your shit. I don't want to hear your shit. Like, just shut up. I'm enjoying the movie. You're ruining for me. Shut up. Right? And I was like, and all that was me venting at the fact that it was like, you know, it's tough. And, you know, no offense. Sometimes I forget that we've got chat full of folks that are, you know, like, well, I hate to tell you, Shawn, but we'll eventually be saying the same shit about, you know, the game when it's out. And it's like, yeah, guys, I get it. But it is one of those things where it's like, it's a
But I
tough
think
business.
there's a big difference between someone which is providing their constructive feedback and they are really trying to help to build the game, and then you have people that have no consideration about the other human being that are behind. They forget about it. They forget that there's that's to show compassion is important. I think it's important to show compassion to other and understanding, etc. But yeah,
Yeah.
to those comments, I have a hard time.
Moral of the story: give good, concise feedback. Don't tear down devs, because they're like, when you said emotionally exhausted, I 100% related to that. We're all emotionally exhausted, and if you're just being toxic and critical for its own sake because you have a flying fancy, just keep it to yourself, because the morale, the team morale roller coaster is a real thing. And emotionally exhausted, we're all humans, and we're trying our very, very best. And yeah, don't if you want the game to be great, the best way is just to give good, constructive, concise, criticism. But personal attacks are,
Yeah.
please don't do that.
And we do always listen to the feedback. And this is something that I've been repeating to the community a lot. If a change you want in the game is not in the game, either because it's a great idea, we cannot do it for technical reason, budget things, manpower, whatever it is, or maybe it's a great idea and we love it, but we cannot do it now. It's going to be implemented later or in a different way. Or maybe it's something that we honestly don't think it fits to the vision that we have with the game. And not every idea are particularly good, or maybe it's really good and we are making a mistake, but still it's eventually us to make the call to what's will fit and work with the rest of the game and everything else we have planned to work. But we are always considering, we're always discussing any feedback in any form. We're discussing it among us, considering it, and sometimes we have to discard it.
Yeah, definitely a lot of factors there. One of the things that's, you know, as I say that, and as I was listening, the one of the other things that happens, I mean, it's kind of like, hey, don't do that, or do, but realize that when someone takes that approach, they just, if they're ignorable, if it's personal attacks on the team, or if they're being disruptive, then it's like, okay, cool, then we'll just time that person out or ban them or whatever. But on the flip side, the thing that happens when someone just kind of proves that they're kind of a dipshit is they just get treated like a dipshit. At least from my end, where I'm like, okay, well, I'm kind of just going to tune that person out. It's like, okay, cool, you got opinions, great, cool, you know, and it's just cool, you're there with your opinions, as opposed to other people that we actively engage with, right? We engage a ton, you know, and it always feels like wish we could do more, but there is a certain amount of like making the game that has to go on outside of like Discord conversations and stuff as well. But it's like, I don't even really think about the stream. To me, I forget that there's like a developer player relationship there. The streams, when we're working on stuff and we're streaming, it's like it's our friends. It's people come in. It's like hanging out with your guild or something. And I really do see that. I would say the bulk of the community feels that way. At least the community that participates. Clearly, not everybody participates, because we've got a lot of folks in Discord, and there's only sort of a handful that are sort of interacting there. But we try to also be good about it. There's even things where, and you guys know who I'm talking about out there. Don't take it personally. I'm not picking on you. We've already had to talk. But like, there are people where we may have to take them aside and like a DM or something, be like, hey man, I like you in the community. Most of the time you say good stuff. You're being a little too salty, or you're, like when new people come in and they're saying dumb stuff, it happens. So let's gently let them know that we're never going to do that, or let's gently let them know that their ideas are not good or whatever. And so it's like, and that's been a really cool part of this development process, right? So Sparrow, I see Sparrow in chat.
Like
Never salty.
looking in a mirror.
Yeah. So
yeah, I mean that sounds very, very familiar to our experience as well.
What do you think's more stressful? The topic that we've been dealing with, right? Like community reaction and the emotional sort of wear and tear that comes from the reaction to the sort of subjective aspects of the game, or the development process and the stress that comes from timelines and budgets and prioritization. Which is worse?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let
we're all
you
gonna
guys
have a different answer. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Yeah, I was
probably
gonna
gonna
say that sounds very personal, depending on like what kind of personality you have.
Well, then personally.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because you could, well, in the role you have, obviously for me, it will not be the timeline, the development things, but that's because my role is to handle the community. So I will only be affected by the community matters. Everything else is for Bobby problems. But but it's also depend of your personality. If you take things too personally, like I was saying earlier, then it might be the emotional draining that's maybe tougher than the actual development, which is just problem you can master in some way, in some sort of way.
But you haven't hit that point yet where you're like, those other factors are making my life very difficult. So it's there's like the inevitable sort of community development team friction of my job with the community is stressful at the moment because you guys either broke this, didn't add this, didn't fix this fast enough. There's not.
I know.
No.
I don't see it that way at all. For me, it's really more a question. I'm someone which is very peaceful and very idealist. And so really, I have a kind of a personal challenge in the communities. Like if I can maintain a very nice and positive and friendly community, then I have contributed to the betterment of the world. So it's beyond just taking care of a video game community. It's really making my part and my contribution to the world. And so every time something happened bad or people have a dispute, for example, and I have to moderate it, that really stress me in a bigger way, because I have the feeling that I am failing at my mission on Earth as a human being, so to speak. So it take a different dimension than just I have a bad day at work today. We also not really doing this as a job, but it's probably like you. It is more than just a work. It is really all of us, all of our being is into that. And the reason why we are doing that is to ensure that some people are happy and they enjoy themselves. And so nothing is better than to see people having fun together and being happy and being excited about the new patch and talk about the game and making prediction about the lore and all that kind of things. That's really what gives us our food. And so the other way around is our punishment. And I think that's people don't really realize why is our reason to be there and to do our efforts and our work it's not just to earn money every month. It is to create something and to see people enjoying it. That's why we are doing that. Otherwise, we will do another job.
Yeah, it's well said. And that's been a response in the past a lot. Like even on other projects, is like there are easier ways to make money. You're right. Like this is usually doing this because it hasn't always been the case for me. There have been like that project I told you, coming in the weird Flash browser game. That was a job. But on the team, it for me was how do I make this team that's had 13 or 12 other producers, how do I finally make it to where they enjoy coming to work? All right. So that was my mission on that one. But again, there are easier ways to make money. The sort of the passion angle that you're talking about there, I think it's an important other perspective to get in here, because we're talking about all of the like, oh shit, it's emotionally draining and this gets said and all that other stuff. But I think what you're just saying is really important about the motivation for doing it. Be curious to hear a little bit more, right? Because you are making something that's it's relatively unique. It was something I noticed within the first couple of hours of playing, was like, oh, cool. This is a very different game than ours, right? And that was fun for me. So I'd be curious if there's a way to, you've hit on it some, but like if there's a way to kind of get into the motivation. I mean, you guys were motivated years and years ago to mess around with this, and maybe some of those motivations changed or the details changed or whatever, but I'm curious about the part that that feels like success, right? And the sort of like the sort of the big dream beyond just like having a stable company. Like, what can you tell us about that?
So
I can chime in a little bit from my perspective is a little unique, and like when I first started following the project, I was genuinely interested to see what or how a small team could build an MMO, because I'd never seen it done before. Like I didn't know what it took. I didn't know like what like the level of quality and what things would be like. So I was genuinely interested um, in that, and so I was very involved early on, and that's kind of how I created a relationship with the team, and that's when they brought me on, because we were exchange of ideas, and they saw some of the things that I was adding insight into. So and it continued for me at that point. Like I wanted to see what it took. And I feel like we've reached that point. We could see, like, looking back a ways and be like, wow, it took a lot. um but now it's sort of like the motivations have changed, and it's just like reminding ourselves that it's like, holy shit, like I'm working on an MMO that's live and has people playing it all the time. Like every minute of the day someone's playing this game, and they're interacting with each other, and hearing the community talk about like, oh, I haven't felt this way since I played EverQuest or something like that. It's just like it feels so good to hear those things, and just trying to remember now that like this is real. Like it's an MMO, it's live, and that's just amazing. And then just getting to enjoy, I'm probably a little biased in like the engineering aspect, where it's like I like those like late night, you know, jam sessions of brainstorming and stuff like that, and trying to come up with creative solutions, and finally getting that right solution that just clicks, and then you see it implemented a day or two later, and it's like, yes, this is what we needed, and that's such a great feeling. um but I'll let someone else add a little bit more to that too.
Yeah, go ahead. Bobby, did you have something you wanted to say?
I got lost in Adric's answer, so I kind of forgot the precise form of the question.
Okay, I did too.
Yeah, I got the anime eyes going on listening to him talk.
Yeah, the
It just relates to the motivation for
yeah.
Yeah.
making the game. Yeah, I mean, I got into game development mainly because I like to know how things work, and that expands to many different areas of my life, and I've always wanted to know how games work. So I started doing some modding, and eventually got into tinkering around with Unity, and then obviously growing up playing EverQuest throughout my later years in high school, and I'm like, how does this thing work? How does it work? And the best way to find out how things work is to make your own, and then you realize the nightmare that you've stepped into and can never leave. So, my own Hotel California.
It's the once you start seeing how do I say this? One of the other things I like about playing your game is I don't know all the details behind the scenes, right? Like I don't know how much of there is or isn't there. I don't know exactly where the lore is going, and it's such a nice feeling, right? Because when you do kind of see behind it, one of the things I described it as is there's a period where when we were working on DC Universe where basically our tools were just broken. They were just we went from having the use of Kismet and Matinee and Unreal back then to just we were gutting it to get it all basically to work with the setup we eventually went with. And so we were writing a lot of documents and honestly taking long lunches and bullshitting and one of the guys took up card magic. And then we all started playing with card magic and basically all just sort of close, whatever it's called, close sort of magic, like coins and everything else. And we went nutty. And it was interesting to see how much like game development that is. In that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. There's a lot of, and it's not to negate the value of what's being done or undermine the experience or whatever, but it's often there's subtle little things that can be done that produce really great effects. But then, and there were times where I was like, holy shit, I know this is not real magic, but that was creepy what he just did, right? And then eventually you learn the trick and you're like, really? That was it? Oh, right. And so when you're working on your game, you know where like the rabbit's been stuffed. And, the thing with playing someone else's game is it's like, oh shit, it's magic again. But that said, there is a special kind of magic in seeing the things, as you were just describing, seeing that feature that you talked about a day ago or 2 days ago come online, or that new tool come online, or this thing that we've been describing. And it's especially fun working with artists because it's like, oh, we talked about a thing and now it's in there, right? And find that to be really, really a motivating part of it, right? It's just seeing it come to life.
Yeah. Seeing people enjoy the thing that you created, even seeing the thing get into the game, like some of the quests, like the Eye of a Back's quest for me, it was like a huge one. Watching Nathan Napalm play through that live was like insane for me.
The highlight of John's life.
Yeah,
one of them.
So yeah, I would agree with that. It's really cool, and I think that's kind of one of the big shockers when people come in to play our game. They're expecting a certain thing, and we are not that certain thing necessarily. We worked really hard not to, like, we wanted to be inspired by things, not copy them. So like we have a lot of weird systems in our game. We got a lot of things that seem familiar at first, but then it's different, and it's we're trying something new, and was a really important thing for us in trying to bring that classic inspired MMO experience to the modern market was like doing that and being a truly like a new thing. And I don't know. I think we've been successful in it. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but yeah, I think when people come into our game, they probably have like a preconceived like, yeah, I know how to play. I've been playing MMOs for years, and I think that's can sometimes turn people away too when you do something different.
That's something we have often discussed in the team, is that we have not tried to be original for the sake of being original. That was not the point. But we really have tried to do something unique, which was not done already. And I've saw some people asking question about the lore, and that will be a nice way to get into that.
Yeah.
Why have we not done high fantasy with wizard, dwarf, and elves? Because you have that right and left illustrated in all kind of way, and we wanted to have something different. We wanted to have a lore that was more grounded in reality, and where you will have to take some time to discover what's going on. And we are allowing ourselves to be inspired by other things, and we're discussing together, and as is a creation between different people. All kind of idea is going to inspire us back and forth, and therefore things take different shapes than if it was just one person imagining their own world by themselves.
Mm.
And we know we are not taking the trendy route, not with the lore and not with our gameplay mechanics, but we are
our revenue model.
Yeah, or we
Yeah.
have new model, but we are trying to offer something where that is honest with our authentic, because we are really putting our soul and our mind into that and our heart into what we're doing, and we're trying to offer a unique experience to our player and really capture them into that experience so they can have adventure to share with their friend and have connection and memories.
Yeah, and with MMO, there's where it currently is, and then it's where it can go, right? Like when you've got that longevity, the it's interesting in that you can, without being reactionary, you can still make adjustments and make changes to lore, the game, etc. over time, or at least this has been my experience, that are a combination of what the team has as a vision of where they want to take the game. But then there's so much interesting speculation and feedback and stuff in the community that, and I've been honest about this in the past, like we incorporated that quite a bit. Like we would read something and be like, did you just read that post where they were talking about they think we're going to do? Yeah, that's great. We should totally do that. And then later it'd be like, we knew it. They had this master plan and we guessed it. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely happened a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah. We like to include the community in what we're doing, because we have the possibility of doing it and we have a very close relation with them. And one of the example is the big planet in the sky that's guiding the players, which is the Eye of Ibex. That's the lore name, but everyone is calling it Blue Peter. Then John wrote a quest where that name is said by the NPC, which is saying, "Oh, I don't know why the Drifter call it Blue Peter. It's such a stupid name."
But that's fun. Now, isn't it north?
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
planet north? That's how I understand that planet. It's like, what is that planet? It's north. It's just that allows me to know where I'm going.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it was Bright Life is a content creator, and he made a video saying like, "Hail Blue Peter, Lord of the North," and yeah, that is true.
Players asked for a compass, so we gave them one, just not in the form they were expecting.
I mean, it's easier to use to find north than in our game. So I was like, I hope no one sees this giant ass planet in their game, and then it gets even madder at us that they don't know which direction's which. But
Well, it actually solved two problems, right? Because we had an issue with nights being too dark, and we had a kind of Earth-like moon cycle happening, right? So like on nights where you'd have no moon, it would be really dark in the game, and it seemed fine on all our monitors, but if you look at a different monitor, it could end up being pitch black, right? So it turns out you have very little control over the actual brightness, and it just makes the gameplay experience for some players worse than others.
Yeah.
So, it served the purpose of, okay, we can put this in the north and say that the planet is tidally locked to this, so that's why it's always there. And then it also serves as a constant source of light at night, so we don't need varying levels of brightness at the nighttime, and we can calibrate it to that. So it was a nice, at least in my view, an elegant solution to having that. Because like having a UI compass, for example, is not going to do you any good in a dungeon anyway, right? So like it doesn't work underground, but hey, it works above ground. But players are going to be upset when we finally add weather and it starts raining and all the clouds come. But
Yeah, but I think it's so much part of the lore and of the story and what make the world special. It's also something I'm always using screenshots with Blue Peter in it to promote Embers Adrift, like because Embers Adrift is the planet that the satellite of Blue Peter, right? We are on the moon of Blue Peter. So this planet is just it's a big thing. And now we need to create a cult that's on our Blue Peter secretly in caves.
Yeah, pretty fun.
so, for you guys have mentioned monetization a few times. For folks that I just realized it because I look over, I set up the other monitor to have the website up as well, just so there's something nice looking in the background, and then I tried to frame it in a way where it would be functional, so that if we needed to look at stuff, we could. Like I said, I've got 0 production values on any of my streams, but in this case, I actually tried a little bit. Now it's scrolling quickly through the images is not my fault. That's your fault on your website. So, but I'm just letting you guys know that, and chat also know that. So, but if I mouse over it, they stop. Look at that. That's magic.
you might be able to click on the individual images. I don't know how.
But
how-
I mouse back off. Boom. Yeah. So for folks that aren't as familiar, like we haven't done it yet, but I think now that people are in chat and stuff like that, do you want to hit some of the sort of like the high points, the back of the box bullets about the game for people that aren't as aware of it? Because I would love for people to be aware of it and check it out.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, so we're a classically inspired MMORPG, Embers Adrift. Cost is $30 to buy the game, and you can play it forever for that price. If you want to support us in a more meaningful way, you can subscribe to the perks, and that's $10 a month. That gets you some really cool stuff, more character slots and whatnot. It doesn't, not having access to the perks doesn't shut you off from any of the gameplay content. Like there's no gameplay content that you don't have access to just because you're not getting the perks. But if you have the perks, a lot of them you can share those benefits with people around you, whether they're subscribed or not. So that's kind of one of the things that we wanted to do with the perk system is like, hey, if you are subscribed and you're supporting us, you're a hero basically, and you get to share those things with other people. So there's like a portable crafting table that you can whip it out and anyone can use it. There's a little boost at the Ember Rings for healing. If you are a subscriber and other people in your group or around you aren't, they still get the little boost.
That's really cool.
Yeah, we think it's a pretty good system. We think it's fair. So that's kind of like the monetization side of things. I would say, yeah, so it's you can start off the game one of 3 roles, pretty classically inspired roles of defender, support, or striker. And then once you get to level 6, that expands into each of those has 3 more specializations you can choose from. And the NPCs that help you do that are pretty salty to each other. So if you're playing, you should talk to all the NPCs about the different roles. It's pretty funny. So
They seem to have opinions.
they do. They definitely have opinions. It's pretty funny. So yeah, the supports are like your healers, DPS obviously for the strikers, and then the tanks for defenders. But we feel like we've done a pretty solid job of making each one of the 9 specializations pretty unique. And not only that, but like the synergy between them in a group works really well. There's not like a preferred set of 6 in a group. Really, you can have any of the 6 together. I mean, you kind of want like, yeah, we have our tanks and our DPSs and our healers, but it doesn't matter which of those. And each group is going to feel different. Your strategies are going to change depending on who you have in there. So, yeah, and we do. I don't know. I'm sure all of you guys in the chat recognize the importance of the skill of pulling mobs. We've kind of tried to bring that back in our game. It's really a skill. The aggro system in our game is pretty cool. I'm kind of just ranting at this point, so if Bobby or Adrian,
well, someone did mention crowd control in chat too, and
yeah,
I mean, a little history there. We did have crowd control as its own unique role initially, but we found that they actually had little to do most of the time. So we rolled those into the remaining 3 roles. So of those specializations that we talked about with between the defender, supporter, and striker, one of the specializations for each of those gets a crowd control ability, and sort of like the crowd control defender, the crowd control supporter, the crowd control striker. And so it does make it so that there can be lots of different combinations, and you could end up with multiple CC types within the same group, and then you use them kind of playing off each other to their strengths.
Yeah, and it makes things pretty darn interesting too. There's a lot of being careful not to wake the stunned mobs or hit the rooted mobs or stuff like that. So positioning is super important. Even walking around with your torch out can be dangerous because you're much easier to see when you have your torch out. And
Interesting.
yeah, our mobs even have like a smell detection, a hearing detection, and a sight detection. So yeah, it's pretty unique. I think a lot of people, once they play enough, they're like, holy crap, like the aggro system is like maybe my favorite part of this game. Like it's pretty cool. But once you have played for a while, you get to level 20, then you can unlock alchemy, which is our magic system. And you start off at kind of like a base level, and then you can kind of grind up those alchemy skills into like a tier 2 of alchemy, which is a lot more big boomy. Yeah, and then it is. I do want to emphasize that the game is about the journey. We talked about this before. It's not about rushing to end game. So we do. It's a bit of a grind. Like it's not as bad as it was at launch, and it probably will get a little better over time too. But yeah, like we're not interested in like rushing you through levels to get to the end game or anything like that. It's mostly really live in the moment, build friendships and relationships with the people around you, and go make good memories. Go explore cool places. It's really about like that community aspect and about making memories with friends. I'm sure you're also very interested in monsters and memories. I'm sure it's not just memories of the past. It's also making good memories while you're fighting monsters. So
it is a definitely a over part of the name when we're going in.
yeah.
And the idea of having a slow pace action is done intently because it serves several purposes. First, it allows you to immerse yourself into the game and to really build up a relationship with the game. Relationships take time. It's not something that happens in 10 minutes. It is something that built over time. And if you want a relationship with the world, you need to spend quite some time with the world. If you want to have a relationship with other players, you need also to have the time to build that relationship with other players and to see them several times. And that's how you get to build a meaningful relationship. And so this slow-paced time allow you to just observe the landscape, immerse yourself into the atmosphere, talk to other players. You can use the chat. You don't have to rush and to dodge and to block and to. You can strategize your combat. You can be more tactical about your approach to the encounter. It is not about being the most dexterous and be a great pianist at your keyboard. It's about being smart and having some weights and stuff like that. So Embers Adrift is created to really give the space for other things outside of the game to happen, and the game is like a treasure box where that can happen. Sort of. Maybe I'm a little arrogant by saying that. It's a tool. It's a place, a virtual place in the world where things can happen.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, like the way I like to play a lot of times, just come in and have something, listen to something because it's during my relaxation period. It's if I'm playing, it's fun to come in and chill, and especially in this last year, especially it's been hard to make the time to do stuff that's not development related because I feel a little guilty if I'm not spending the time on it. You guys probably run into that as well, and maybe we could ask some questions on that in a second. But what I found was it was very easy for me to come in and find a pace where I'm listening to what I want to listen to while I also had game sounds going, and I'm like going and I'm just grinding, minding my own business, suboptimal, right? Because I'm out soloing a bit and, collecting some shit. And then every once in a while, somebody would be doing something or they'd ask if I wanted, hey, are you working on this? Or just, I found that there was a lot of really nice social friction in there. And because I play at odd hours as well, over in Germany in the morning or something. And I found myself just kind of getting pulled into a group and then we're running off and we're in the caverns and all of a sudden I've got to pay attention, right? Like now I've got health bars that I'm watching because it's like, it's people. I don't want to be that guy that like doesn't heal you and you die, even though if anybody's played EQ with me, I'm absolutely the dude that doesn't heal you on time and you die. So I'm like, oh shit, I got to be on my best behavior here. And I found like I had just a really fun. It was a nice break from like this sort of steady, relaxed, meditative pace that I was at before. Go in and running around looking to see if there were various rares up. We did that for a few circuits, and the group just felt like there are people that I hadn't played before. I wound up grouping with a couple of them the next day, just incidentally again, but like. It just clicked into place. It felt like old friends. The person who was pulling was doing a fantastic job, and the people in the group were like, great job pulling. And I was like, have you played EQ before or whatever? Have you played a puller before? No. I was just like, oh, that's even better, right? And so, when I went in, I didn't know what to expect. I've just seen screenshots. I've seen other people play the game, and I have to say, watching other people play the game did not. As much as it's fun to watch other people play the game, it did not do the game justice. And
100%.
It really is a thing where if someone plays it and they're like, hey, I don't like it. Cool. Then you don't like it. But I would absolutely recommend people, especially the ones that are like, I don't have anything to play right now. And, I'm waiting for this or, just that sort of vibe of like wanting to try something. It's like, there's no really good excuse not to check it out and get in and see if it's for you.
Honestly, we've had a lot of people say that same thing, and it's been one of the hardest marketing challenges for us is how can we show people in our marketing what the game actually feels like when you're playing it? It's like impossible. Like it's
It is.
really hard.
You cannot really do that because it is a lot about the atmosphere and something that can transfer into streaming. I stream a lot of Embers Adrift, obviously, and I was discussing that this week because some people say, "Well, it's this combat doesn't seem really exciting." Then I say, "Yeah, it's a very strategic combat. It's a little bit slow. I understand that it's not interesting you." Then you say, "Oh, it's tactical. Oh, okay." And then I realize, okay, maybe I'm going to explain everything I'm doing in detail. Okay, I'm doing this and doing that. And then suddenly the person was like, "Oh, that's much interesting than what it looks like when you're just chatting randomly with your chat. But if you explain every action, and here I'm stepping back a little bit, and now I'm reapproaching myself closer, I'm healing my friend, I go back again because I don't want to be dazed, now I'm attacking, and now I regain some stamina, and now I'm resting a little bit, and that kind of stuff. It make it much more sense suddenly what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's a great example with the bears in the first zone. Like when you start fighting the bears, especially if you're a healer, like moving in and out of range of the days, like people don't really see that as like you can't express that in marketing, but like being able to not get dazed so you can still heal while other people are, meleeing this thing is a really big deal.
And part of that, because we talk about this in relation to how do you teach the game, right? And so you guys, you do a fair bit of that, whereas we've not approached that so far. We're like, well, we've got the manual posted, and there's a button that'll now take you to the manual. If you don't read the manual, then you can ask somebody in game, and maybe they'll help you with your specific question, right? Whereas you guys actually you've got the notes that pop up, and and there's information there, but you're still not going to be able to cover everything. And it's cool. I actually hear it as there's a challenge and there's a great opportunity. The challenge is how do you get people in game? Because then they're going to experience it and they're either going to like it or they're not, or they may kind of like it and then they realize there's a degree of mastery that comes from all this stuff that you can't explain. Right, because you're just explaining all sorts of nuance, everything from within pulling, and then you said there's like, not only is there the visual identification range with the fire, I didn't realize that, and I tend to run around without the torch on anyways. But then I got the cool torch. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna run around with the torch, but typically I still don't. But I didn't realize there's actually gameplay associated with it, and then smell and hearing and stuff, and it's interesting because I get the sense that there's a lot of shit I don't know when I play it, which to me is fun because it's nice to get back into an environment where it's not like, okay, it's just kind of spelled out now I need to do this. And so I love that. And I love hearing that there are those things, right? Because that's, to me at least, one of those things that I get excited about is like, oh, this isn't it. There is a lot of stuff going on either behind the scenes or under the hood or that's coming, or right, like the evolution of the world or all of those things. And I look at these types of games, and I think a number of other people do. There's this investment that we're making. And so it's not just this binary, do I enjoy it in this moment or not? With an MMO, for me at least, it's, do I enjoy it as just a base sort of moment to moment activity? But then also, is it going to be here for 2 years or 5 years or 10 years? Are the actions that I'm taking in this moment going to add up to some value over time? Is there that opportunity that on this server, at least, that if I just keep steadily popping in, even if I'm not, grinding every day and sort of min-maxing and cutting edge, and running around with Sparrow and company and all the cool kids, if I'm just steady, then 2 years from now, 3 years from now, will I look back, and as people are coming into this environment for the first time, will I be somebody in this environment, right? There's that investment. And so it's cool to hear that there is that stuff going on. It's always fun to hear that there are other ways to potentially play your class there's not just the optimal way, right? I got that sense. That said, I'm probably playing my class shitty, but I get the sense that I have options and I'm able to do some stuff. I'm playing a Sentinel. And I was actually going to ask you a trick question. I was like, describe the gameplay of a Sentinel in your mind. Right. And then you're going to describe something completely different. I'm like, oh God, my group probably thought I was just ridiculous. Right. But it felt like because I like playing clerics. But in this case, I felt like I had the choice to be active. And I had the choice to sort of pick my engagements and sort of see where I'm essentially, spending my mana. Is it mana or is it stamina? Stamina?
Stamina for everyone, yeah.
Yeah. And so
Stamina.
Yeah. And so I'm like, stamina. Am I doing this the right way? Right. And there were those clinch moments in there as well, where it's kind of like, man, we're all getting low on stamina and shit's actually kind of getting a little hectic in here. And those little choices of, all right, this person pulled this away, or we engaged over here, or oh, we actually got it together and sort of focused this one down. And for me, it was really fun and engaging. And some of the stuff that is interesting, there are things that bum me out, but I also understood why you did it. And then I went ahead and did it the right way. And there was that opportunity. So if you would just let me collect all the things off the ground all the time, I would just spend all my time walking around collecting things off the ground, listening to podcasts. I'll never get past level 10 because I would corner the market on random shit that other people didn't want to take the time to pick up. But you didn't. And so I was kind of grumpy at first. I was like, I see these mushrooms that I want to collect. I see some wood over here. I'm going to smoke some meat and I can't get the wood unless I'm just completely playing the game wrong. And so I was like, all right, if I'm the guy getting the meat and I got to find a person with so I just asked, who's got wood? I wanted to smoke some meat. And they're like, I got some wood. I'll swap you. I'm like, oh shit, look at us being social. Right. And so, Nick, after I mentioned your professionalism earlier, and then you say stuff like that in chat. I don't know. I'm telling you things that I enjoyed about the game. How do we get it back? Oh, and I want to be respectful of your time. I'm good for however long you guys would like to go, but we just went over the 2-hour mark. And I know you guys have a game to build and things like that. For me, it's the evening, so it's just kind of like difference between 10 and 11 isn't that big. So you guys let me know. But I want to make sure that we also cover everything. We've talked about monetization. We've talked about classes, class progression. What else are we missing anything?
I don't know. Exploration, the world. I don't know. I guess one of the things that I think is pretty good in our game that I don't think people recognize also is learning the zones and how the world kind of helped you do that. So instead of looking at a compass, you're actually looking up with your character into the sky to find Bloopeter. And then you're looking around you. Oh, like I remember that Ember Ring here. There's another one kind of east. And I know east is this way because, Ibax is right there. And I think that has kind of been one of the things that is kind of gone by the wayside in a lot of modern MMOs. And I think it does create a whole kind of different experience for people. And then when you get into the dungeons, it's like a whole nother level because those things are so maze-like and long. And
I will jump on that and say that in Embers Adrift, it's not only to be good at your class that matter. It's not just to be good. Sorry for the sound behind. It's not just to be good at your class and at fighting and at combating, but people that are really good at exploring, they will shine. In many other games, they don't have the occasion to shine because the GPS is always indicating everyone and no one cares. While here, and I had several persons giving me that feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are really bad at recognizing their way, and they need other people to guide them, or they need something. Those people can be frustrated sometimes that there is no compass. But then it allows all the explorers that are actually good to show their skills and to shine for once, because this is the first game which is a MMO, because survival game, I guess it's in a different matter, but they have the occasion of showing their capability of recognizing the terrain, of guiding themselves with the planet in the sky, and memorizing how the zone is. And those people that I like to explore every corner, and they will be able to tell you, yeah, I discovered a super place here, we can grind this mob, and then there's maybe a name, all that kind of things is possible. The other skill which is required is a social skill, a social skill that is often not acquired anymore in MMORPG, because you don't have to do it. You can just join a dungeon finder, and you have the matchmaking that pop you with 5 other people, and you teleport in the dungeon, and you do your stuff, and you don't have to say hi. Here in Embers Adrift, if you have good social skill, you will be rewarded for it. You will have more easy time to make groups. People will know you. They will trade with you because they know you are the woodworker which can craft that stuff. And so someone which is taking the time to explore their social skill will also be able to shine in a particular way. And so you can be very bad at playing the game and excellent at setting up a group, or excellent at finding your way.
Yeah, and that natural leadership definitely shines. It's been cool having people that know their way around and asking, you know, are you on this quest, or, you know, hey, do you want, and just being able to follow them around. So
Nicodemus has some good questions. Best practices or lessons you've learned that you guys can share. I think one of the big things people can sometimes get hung up on is the darkness level at night. Like some monitors, and this was kind of new to us, kind of going in, we want a dark game, but some monitors just are way too dark, and so we have a slider in there, the exposure slider. If you put it all the way down to -1, that will make your nights more tolerable. So you know, that's one thing. Making sure you're not in like combat stance when you're trying to equip something is another one I see people trip up on a lot early on. Yeah, just using the grouping tool. I guess I should say the LFG tool, the social tool. It's not a grouping tool. It won't put you in a group, but you can mark yourself as LFG. It'll put a little blue icon above your name, so people, if they see you, they'll know you're LFG. But I don't think it's like the best kept secret in the game. I don't think people use it as much as they ought. But pairing that with, you know, a LFG message in the world chat or something like that really goes a long way.
Is that Nick from your team? I feel like he's asking us.
Yeah, it's more dev
development
question,
question,
I
not
assume.
necessarily like a gameplay question.
yeah,
Gotcha.
that's Nicodemus.
Any best practices you could share about developing games? Yeah,
Absolutely.
so the LFG tag
Use
is really-
LFG.
Looking for game devs?
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
What do you guys think about the most challenging feature to
I think
implement?
it's to find the balance between listening to the community and keeping head on with our vision. And so being able to compromise without compromising too much, not getting ourselves, what can I say?
Not hitting the oh shit button and changing things too quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we could be tempted to say, oh, they're not happy, they don't like that, we should change it. But in fact, we will kind of destroy the game if we were doing it immediately that way. So it's always to consider things, but slowly, and to let things think, which is why you don't always see the change like right away, even if it seems obvious that we should fix that.
We
But
actually have had people give us feedback, and then, you know, because we have a monthly cycle, and we're probably won't change things month to month with feedback. Like we want to let it sit and stew for a little bit. We've had people like give us feedback about something and be like, you know what, after I played this for this month, like disregard, like this is actually really fun.
Yeah,
So not hitting that panic button right away is really, really good. Unless it's like very clear, like, okay, yeah, that was stupid.
Yeah.
We gotta change that.
Sometimes someone make a request, the next day it's in the game, or almost the next day, the next patch. But it has happened sometimes, and people were like, "What? Oh, that's so cool! I asked that last week. It's so nice." That's when Bobby has an illumination and an inspiration.
yeah. I guess for the first question, I think like one of the things that we did a lot of early on that we had to change is making lots of changes all at the same time. And yeah, Bobby's nodding over there. That like because we moved very fast in beta and even like just after launch, and like we were making all sorts of changes to all parts of the game, and it just became impossible to kind of separate out what parts of the feedback were directed at what change, and we just had to like slow down. And that's kind of like another reason for like doing monthly patch cycles instead of weekly is, you know, trying not to change too much too quickly, even if it is, the feedback is very strong and loud, that we need to take the long path and be patient and change things slowly. And then even for like the second half of that question, which challenging features. Yeah, I would liken to like our we released alchemy, right? That was probably a great example of this. And the costs were higher than a lot of people expected for the use of the magic system. And so we took that and we said, okay, what are the pain points here? We identified that there weren't enough sources of it, so we increased all the sources of it, and then gave that to the community, and it percolated with the community for a while, and the feedback would still come back that it was too much. So we said, okay, we'll make another adjustment, and it's just not like doing too much too fast. I think that's probably one of the easiest things to sort of identify in terms of best practices for us.
And you guys, how many of you are there?
What is it? It's like 12. It's less than 12 now. Yeah, I don't remember the exact number. I think it's like 9.
Yeah. And
yeah, we've had some contractors come and go and whatnot.
Yeah. Has it been so coordinating all the various changes as well as one of the other challenges, right? Especially if you've got a release, then that also implies that you want a stable release. And so when people hear like a month cycle, it's like, oh, you got all the time in the world. Well, it's like, well, it's got to be stable before it comes out, or it's not helpful. And so there's
I mean, we have a feature lock, right, where we basically like a week before we actually have the patch, it's only bug fixes that week, right? So no new features unless it's a dire emergency or something. But it's like we basically say, okay, everything that didn't make it by this week has to be punted till next week, And a lot of the times, especially doing things like Unity engine upgrades and stuff like that, like I'll get that on QA, we'll be testing it, and there's like some weird small thing here or there, and it gets close to that week, and I'm like, you know what, it just needs to be punted.
Yep.
We're not gaining a huge thing going from Unity 2021 to 2022, so let's just punt it for now, and we'll get it on QA early next month, and
Yep. Very, very familiar sounding. If and I'll be honest, if it wasn't, if the challenge of if the challenge of coordinating, getting you guys together and also getting folks from the team together wasn't so daunting, I would have suggested that when we first started talking as well. It's like, oh, and then try to have folks on the design side and Ali could sit there and nod right along as you're talking about Unity updates and stuff. And so that may be a thing that we could do in the future, but I figured it'd be easiest just to come in do this and kind of see how it goes. The challenge with having, 9 people or however many people is also getting all of that stuff in and knowing what went in, and then knowing what sort of might have broke the other thing unexpectedly.
That's essentially my job,
Yeah.
is managing the Git repository, to merging all the branches together and understanding how the different systems interact with the other systems. And basically, I have this like overview of how all these things interconnect, and try and maintain how changes might impact the other systems in my head. And that's a lot of the things that people don't necessarily consider when suggestions are made for seemingly simple changes, and the ripple effects that they could have on other systems and how other systems interact with other systems. So it's just it's a big thing, and I just try and keep most of it in my head, and consider it when we are making any changes. So
Right on. Yeah, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else you guys have? It's funny because I know there are a lot of questions asked early on, and I'm sorry, folks in chat. I was ignoring them because I really this time around I wanted to focus on what was actually being said, and not, because it's easy for me to. A question gets asked, and then the answer's happening. Let me check what's going on in chat or whatever I missed. I didn't want to do that this time. So. Do I have any super awesome questions written? We already covered all that stuff. Yeah, I am, I'm excited to see how you guys move things forward. Because it just to be perfectly honest, over the last, especially this last year, I've been so caught up in our world, in like making, it's the first year for us, it was just 4 of us, and and 3 of us were very, like, pretty hands on. It was just Ollie was basically making sure all the tech worked. From like week 1, it was like we as soon as we were like, "Hey, do you really want to do this?" It was essentially like Ollie, Nick, and I talking, and I think even separate DMs. And then finally, yeah, let's just start working on this. And immediately Ollie was like, okay, well, we've got a room now. And now there's a capsule. Now, like, oh, cool. Now it's network. There's 2 capsules. And all right. And it was just like immediately like, let's have something playable from the moment we start from this point forward. And so, Ollie and Nick were working on different design stuff, and the 3 of us were working on like design tooling, and then just base tech, and Nick's background's QA, and he's gnarly at it, right? And so just from day 1, we were already basically had a sort of a QA process, right? Even when we were bullshitting, it was like, all right, this thing's going in, it's getting QA, there's feedback, and it's like, all right, well, let's start actually recording that feedback, and then next thing you know, we've got issues in GitHub and stuff. In that first year, it was just very much like I guess we're doing this, right? Like, it's weird. I don't even know what we were thinking, other than, hey, let's stream the development of a game. I think was mainly the thing. I think that was the main thing. It was like, because then we could talk about development. If anybody has questions, maybe there's some insight I could provide or whatever, and then we can just talk bullshit about development, and then we'll see. And then maybe this will turn into a thing or whatever. And it was, that just started rolling for us. But when it was only 4 of us, and Bunny was on the team at the time working on like world building and lore and stuff with me, it was kind of lapsed the days ago, I'll be honest, right? Like, I think that we had COVID going on, and I was in Sweden, and things were pretty chill there, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna go out and get some beers, and then we're gonna do this thing and poke at it, stream some more. And it was just sort of like, it wasn't intense by any means. Trust me. It was like, oh, we're playing some EverQuest tonight. That's what we're doing. P99. That's what the stream's about all week. Or like, I'm gonna sit here and camp this damn spawn for 20 hours this week. And but then in year 2, once and I was making, you know, bullshit art in Blender, and actually having to ask chat, like, guys, what button makes the art in Blender, kind of thing. So thank you, chat, for helping us get our first zones in place. And so then we got, you know, when we expanded the team, we've got more folks on, essentially additional programming help, actual artists on the team and stuff. And then we started getting a little bit more real and started rolling a bit. And then year 2 going into year 3, it's just like, oh shit, we're actually making a game, right? Like, I think the rest of the team knew this, and I was like, we're actually making a game. All right, and so it's been a little bit harder to make the time to play other games and pay attention to what's going on. And so I saw you guys, and I heard about it, and people in our community were definitely talking about it. And I checked out the website and was checking it out. And I did the thing that I do where I'm like, oh, you know, this part doesn't necessarily look like me, or I don't know, you know, like, you know, I wouldn't do this way, right? Kind of thing, you know. And then
Yeah.
and it's normal, and I'm just being honest about it. And so like went in, and then it was a thing then where when I got in and started playing, I'm like, okay, I'm having fun with this, which then now culminates now with meeting you guys and actually getting to talk to you firsthand. And I had already, you know, I cheated and I was watching some VODs and stuff, and I was like, well, shit, these people seem really personable. Like, these seem like really nice characters over here. They don't seem like evil game developers at all, right? And so
Thank you.
I was,
Evil until proven good, right?
well, you never know, man. Like, dudes with big beards can go one of 2 ways. All right? In my experience, there's only 2. And they're either too intense or they're really nice guys. And so I'm glad to see that you fell into the latter. Like, as soon as we're done here, he just like goes in intense mode. It just starts bearding all over him. He's like, "Rah!" Right? So
No, I've yet seen John be. I mean, he's had points, but it's not. It's one of the nicest guys I know. I feel so bad when he brings me such good ideas, and I have to say no.
Yeah.
Hey man,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just
true.
trying to throw crap at the wall and see what sticks.
Hey man, so you gotta get right.
If it doesn't stick, it doesn't stick. It's not your fault.
it doesn't stick today. If we throw the same crap at the wall a different day, you never know, right? So sometimes you got to
They've
throw
been
the crap
tried for
twice.
years. I have to keep shutting them down.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta word it slightly differently. Just like
Exactly.
Mm.
There you
They
go.
word it just the right way. A light bulb goes off in my head. All of those systems that I have, you know, up in the head end up connecting and lighting up, and I say, that's exactly what we needed. And you know, a lot of the times discussions with the community about that end up that way too, right? It's like someone will say something or make a suggestion that, you know, is not what we're looking for necessarily, but it leads us in a direction that allows us to make that connection and say, this is a system that works within what we're trying to do, and this makes the game better in almost every way. So let's implement this tomorrow, you know.
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So, yeah,
I
we're
really like
Go ahead. Sorry, Aloha.
I really like our team and the fact that every person in the team has a different personality and something different to bring to the team, and we complement each other nicely. Because we will all have like different traits. We like every human, you know, but it just work well in our in our team, because you will have the people that have a crazy idea, and then you have Bobby, which Russell knows everything, and it justifies things. And then, well, I don't know. It's just I really love our team. I really love, and everything we have been through, and all the, you know, the, like I say earlier, ups and downs and hardships and challenge we had to face, and very emotional and stressful things. Then real life stuff that hits as well, and we
There's that.
always had to be able to talk to each other and to be there. And so the weekly meeting for me is very precious, because it's allow us to connect and to discuss together. And then we have our test session and stuff like that. And it's always the occasion to talk about the game, but also to talk about ourselves and connect. And I do believe that's one of the great motivation for me as well. It's not only to work on the game or for the community, but also for the team and the bonds we have created. Because like John said earlier, we have become a family.
Yeah. Yeah. Big time. But yeah, I mean, you know, for us, it's really a pleasure to be able to connect with you guys, another indie dev team, and to not be so much of an island. You know, it's nice to kind of be part of more of a community of indie devs. So thanks for getting in contact with us and inviting us to come on and chat with you. It's really wonderful.
Well, and
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day, right? Like, and I think we mentioned it earlier. It was Sparrow that made the full connection, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We have some people in our community that are very fun about Monster and Memories, and I have been playing too one of the tests.
I heard.
I
I heard all about
really
your experience.
well, my experience has been a little bit catastrophic in terms of the gameplay side because I have not played EverQuest, so I'm not familiar at all with it.
It's
But
okay.
I've been really very, very mesmerized by the art. And that's something that I've been explaining. For me, the art is really great because it kind of shades the form of something, and then your mind is doing everything else. And for me, it really worked well. And I was walking in those little streets, and there was the light. The sky was really gorgeous, and there was the light, and I really felt myself transported into a world. And I realized, like, if I observe with my eye, I can see, okay, it's simple graphics, it's not like fancy new world, but my mind is making it all inside my head, and that's what I really loved about it.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and I think you'd actually mention that because I on a stream or somewhere I had heard that part, and I was excited because that's been a goal, right? That's really been something that we've talked about since year one. It's like, how do we leave enough negative space, or honestly so much negative space that there's a lot of just filling in the blanks? Because when we were deconstructing what we liked about the old graphics, it was a lot of that, because we'd go back and be like, oh, none of this shit, like, because we'd look at the levels, we were like, oh, none of the stuff that I imagined was in here, right? Like, it was just a different
Yeah.
experience. So I definitely appreciate that. Take that as a big compliment, and it's nice. It's nice to see that. But we also know that there are definitely some. We do some frustrating things to people, and sometimes very intentionally, and we'll see if that works for us. But yeah, no, it's super cool of you to take the time and to coordinate and do this. And I would say on the indie dev side, it's easy to have these kind of things and say, hey, keep in touch or whatever. But we do have some folks that we've worked, we not work with, but that we talk to regularly on other teams. The guys over at Evercraft Online, for I think years now at this point. It's been fun to just get the random DM, and be like, oh, hey, what's going on here? Or, oh, I just popped in a playtest, or be like, hey, we've got a playtest coming up, and bullshit and talk. And so I will definitely say that if you're interested, always, I mean, you know where to find folks in our community. They're in here now as well. Pattis / Harrison was, I think he said, Wendy, that he had hopped into your stream during the test, and that's where it first heard about it, because the guys are really good about that. Usually I'll stream a playtest, but everybody else is like in other people's streams or channels or whatever, and watching to see like what is or isn't working or whatever. So I would love to keep up. I mean, we're already kind of this way where it's like always happy to share anything that we can, like, technical details, or if we've run into something, or if the latest Unity update's been weird, or any of that
I'm
shit.
always happy I'm always happy to discuss tech things, especially with other teams that are going through the same process that we are, because it's definitely a learning process, and every day I'm like, oh, okay, here's another. Every time I go to upgrade Unity, there's some engine bug that is obviously in their LTS version. It's just a nightmare, right? So like,
Yeah.
being able to share that with other teams and talk about different problems and how you might solve them, and there's a lot of back end. For example, we've been fighting some memory leak stuff on our servers for the past year,
Yeah.
and it's a challenge. So I definitely am happy to talk about that kind of stuff and the lessons that we've learned from that, because it's learn as you go, and stuff that's not talked about frequently, because I don't know how you guys are running your servers, if it's an actual Unity executable or something else, but yeah, there's
I've
feel
got
like
the
no one else is. Yeah.
I've got the feeling. Basically, I would I'll go ahead and speak for Ollie and volunteer his time. But like these are conversations that I've noticed he likes to have. And so he loves getting into the Grognardian details of not only how the server is currently implemented, but like iterations that we've taken in the past, and the reason why we're on our fourth or fifth or sixth iteration of pathing, and all sorts of fun stuff. And and with you guys being live, it's nice to get those sort of details about what you're seeing in a live environment. The reason why we've play tested as much as we have already so early is just because no matter how many headless clients or how sophisticated they are or whatever, found in the past that until you've got actual people connecting from actual places and weird shit, like the gremlins don't come out until it's showtime, right? So
yeah, I mean, it's 100% the truth. Like that memory leak bug, I fixed it, or I fixed a lot of it, right? And then we pushed it to live, and then suddenly the server started deadlocking when GC came around and was like, "I'm gonna clean these things up," and the engine would literally just stop responding, and everyone would get disconnected. And we had automated services that would restart zones if they went offline or if they crashed or whatever happened, but they didn't pick this up because the zone didn't crash, but the CPU spiked up to 200%, and you could connect the profiler, but it wouldn't return any data. It was just like so I'm sitting here trying to comment out all of my old code and revert the changes and build another server, and oh man, that was a very stressful part soon after launch. So but yeah, there's a lot of things learned from that.
yeah,
So
making video games is fun.
Yeah.
one word.
Yeah, and my I'm excited again to be able to talk to you guys, and it's really cool to actually be able to sort of connect in a more personal way, because it makes it even more fun to root for you.
Yeah.
No matter what, beforehand I was rooting for you because you're you're an indie team working on an MMO, right? And it's in our own self-interest for you guys to be successful, because it's like, oh shit,
it's
it can
in
be
all of
done.
our self-interest for all of
Right.
us to succeed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the thing that I think is cool that people sometimes don't think about, like I started working, basically I wanted to work on EQ. And so I went and I joined the company so that I could work on EQ. And that was, and that realization happened in 1999. It's 2024 now. And it honestly, it flew by so quick. Now, in real time, it wasn't always fast. In real time, there were some weeks and months and years of like, oh my gosh, this is tough. And but now in retrospective, looking back, it goes by so quick, and it's weird, right? Like I'm gonna have my 49th birthday soon, right? And so I'm getting to that point too where I'm like, oh shit, I've only got so many 20-year cycles left in me, and I feel like I'm just now starting to learn about the industry and making games and stuff. And
Oh yeah.
it's a small industry is the other thing, right? And so, and the number of people that have ever made an MMO or worked on an MMO, when you consider all of the game developers, and then you think of all of the people in the world, it's a small sort of club. And you guys have successfully done it. You have a live MMO, right? And so that's not common either. I mean, you've got a better track record now than I would say most of Sony Online studios. And so like, and I was there, and I'm not picking on them. I'm just saying we had like 7 studios. I can name 7 good Sony Online games that you can remember. And so and I can say that because I'm an alum. And so I'm just saying it's a small world. So I'm never getting a job in the industry again. That's why I'm making indie games. And so all of this is to say, like, I'm excited to see you guys be successful and grind, because the thing that people don't think about with companies is like maybe the 10 years before we actually heard about them, right? Like, you know, you look at it, you look at the studios, we're like, oh, this studio makes shit hot games, or these guys are really successful, or, you know, this is my favorite game company. And then it's easy to not remember that, you know, they were doing ports at one point and they weren't making their own games. And then they got to the point where they got the skills up or the cash up to be able to make their own game. And then they make some games that people don't remember. And then next thing you know, they're making WoW, and then fast forward another 15 years or 20 years, and you're like, oh my God, they're an evil empire, right? And you know, so it's like it's the cycle of life, Simba. So it's really cool to meet you guys at this stage in your cycle. And like I said, I'm rooting for you guys to continue sort of to grind. And I like what you said earlier about games are forged.
Yeah.
I've always kind of thought of, I don't know, do you know, shit, my memory's so bad because I am getting to that point, and I probably drink way too many monsters in a day. But what's his name? Somebody that's on the internet. Tell me the guy's name. The guy that's always running shirtless, no matter what the weather is. And David Goggins. Do you guys know David Goggins at all?
Mm-mm.
Okay, you got to find David Goggins on the internet when we're done here, because he's an interesting character. But when I think about making games, it's I've always thought that it's just they're just kind of willed into existence sometimes, right? Because it's a quitting match. And there's somebody else that said, like, I think he might have said this, you know, when people are like, oh, quitting's not an option. No, quitting is absolutely an option. Quitting is the easiest option. It's honestly, it is the biggest option. It's the, I am done with this shit. I am so frustrated. I'm not doing this shit anymore. Or, hey, you know what? Like, I can go make more money doing something else. Or, you know, F all of you, table flip. I'm tired of arguing about this decision or design change, or, you know, blah, 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 blah. Like, quitting is always an option. But the interesting thing is that perseverance, like the marathon that is making these games, and then once they're live, pushing them, driving them, grinding them, and continuing to build your community and make the game better and better and better. Like, that is just such a fun exercise in willpower that's why I get excited about indie MMOs and indie MMO teams, right? Because I wish everybody success. I don't know that every team's going to be successful. You know, like I've seen other games, we've talked to people in the past that have come up and disappeared, and you know, some people haven't found the rhythm, you know, whatever it is. I'm really excited for the idea of, you know, 10 years looking back and going, oh shit, yeah, that was them running shirtless in the snow, not giving up. Like, in all of the, you know, all of the scenarios where it was like they could have quit, they didn't, and then they made some cool shit. Yeah, I don't know. So that's my thought pattern on all of this.
We'll run the race together. We're really excited for you guys too, and
Yeah.
really happy to support you guys in any way we can. I have a feeling that the relationship's probably going to be the other way around, but yeah, just delighted to be here and to, you know, be talking with you. So
It's really interesting because obviously it's like the content creators. Content creators go through specific trouble and problems and challenge and joys, etc. And there's really only other content creator that can speak about those specific things. And I think it's the same thing with indie devs. We are encountering the same kind of struggle and problem and challenge and overcome and things like that. So it's great to be able to have an exchange and yeah, heart to heart, or like we did right now. It's really cool. So thank you very much. Not everyone is doing that, so it's really nice to be able to build relationships, and I think it's beneficial for the community as well. And because I'm always part of this mindset that there is no competition, there's only collaboration. And so my success is your success is my success. So I have interest that you're successful, and that's how we nourish and build up each other. And I think like everyone benefited from it: the community, the players, the developers, the games, the industry, etc. And so I think it's great. So thank you very much for doing this step.
Thank you. And you're a better person than I am. I do believe that it is good to some people need to be destroyed. But there is some competition, but not you guys. So cool, man. All right. I always hate, like, it's hard to wrap these things up because I'm sure there's tons of shit that I should have asked or would have asked or whatever. I'll definitely be thinking about that later, and we'll fire over some questions. If you guys run into anything on your end, then always feel free to ask. And then who knows? Yeah, at some point we, if you, when the dust settles and all that stuff, you're like, hey, that was fun, and you want to do it again, or if there's a specific topic or a like a check-in point, or if you guys are doing something big and you want to talk about it or whatever, yeah, just
Cool.
let
Yeah,
me know.
that sounds fantastic.
And then what we need to do is to play each other game together. That would be really cool. To do a team of mixed dev playing each other game and discovering and chatting about the games as we play it.
That I think that could be fun. You know what? And I would think that could even be fun offline. That, where it's one of those things, because then we could even, we could say some stuff and we're not worried about whether or not somebody's going to overhear it, or
I have words.
Yeah.
You can be honest when you're going back to your corpse in the pitch black dungeon without any of your shit on and your spell book is on your corpse. You can let us know exactly how you really feel. And we'll totally consider that opinion, and we'll put that over in the opinion pile. But yeah, so no, awesome, guys. Thank you very much. I'm gonna wrap up then, because I feel bad that I'm dragging it on for you. And again, appreciate your time. Thank you for being here, and I'm excited to chat with you guys more offline. And
thanks again.
feel free to
we
can take a moment to say bye to people in chat and stuff as well if you want to. Thanks again, Sparrow.
Yeah, special shout out to Sparrow. Go follow Sparrow on her her Twitch thing.
And everybody else, I will shit. Oh, I forgot. It's always awkward when I click this off because I've got to switch scenes and stuff, and I'm so not good at this. Okay, so, but that's not your problem. That's my problem. We'll do this, and then I'll basically wrap up here. You know what? I'm just going to end the stream. I'm going to end the stream as well. I'm not going to say goodnight to everybody as usual. So good night, everybody. When we're done here, I'm clicking off, and then we'll see each other later. And I'll be streaming tomorrow because Jasmine's got a thing, and I missed my stream on Tuesday. So we can talk more about this tomorrow. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks again to you guys. It was very, very cool.
Yeah. Peace.